energy and wind.
I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, it's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China.
They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
so
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move on.
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in.
Get ready for it. It's happening again, apparently. Let's welcome back Doug Collins to talk more about this. All right, Doug, what do you think? I mean, you know, it's moderated by CNN. There's going to be apparently no audience there. Joe Biden made a lot of conditions, and Donald Trump just jumped at the opportunity. Was that the right call, or should he have made some counter demands?
No, I think I think when you look at the demands from Joe Biden, it's just to protect Joe Biden, you know, this idea of cutting the mic off, all this other stuff. But I have a question, because I've heard they've still got to pick the moderator. Is it CNN gets the network, somebody else gets the moderator? I mean, because we haven't heard who the moderator might be, which that'll be an interesting, after Donald Trump's already been on CNN on a town hall that went very well for him. It'll be interesting to see if it's Collins or somebody else who does the moderating. But I have two things that really I want to point out there. It struck me ever since we've been talking about this. Number one, the video where he calls out Donald Trump, says, "I'll debate you twice." If you notice it's cut up, it cuts four or five times. Yeah. I'm wondering how many times they had to actually tape that to actually get it to where it looks like it's halfway, you know, reasonable to have had to stop it, number one. And then number two, the debate that you showed, John, in all fairness, is that the same Joe Biden that you see today?
No.
The answer,
no. It's not the same. It's not the same Joe Biden, and I don't think it's the same Donald Trump either. You know, there's going to be a lot more said about Hunter Biden that you couldn't really talk about in 2020 because it was forbidden. You know, if Donald Trump focuses on the issues, we know he could talk about Lincoln Riley, another specific example of what he was just talking about, warning everyone about in 2020, and he can get specific on that now. And, you know, we know we're going to see Joe Biden struggle. I do wonder, though, if this is a bit of a trap for Donald Trump. You know, if it is CNN moderators, you know, we saw how poorly they did last time, and Kristen Welker was almost like a pundit and instead of like a moderator in a debate. And then the other thing too is, whatever happens after the debate, you know how it's going to be spun, Doug, by the mainstream media. And if Donald Trump is too aggressive, it's almost like, you know, the things I used to talk about when Donald Trump would debate a woman. They're going to apply those things now to, you know, Hillary Clinton, and apply those things to Joe Biden. Oh, he was too aggressive, or, you know, I do think there are concerns for Team Trump when it comes to this debate. I know Joe Biden is old and feeble and seems weak, but the cards are going to be stacked against Donald Trump.
Yeah, they will be. And I think that's why he has to really focus on hitting the three messages: economics, open border, world security. These are the kind of things. Hit that, hit that, hit that. And corrupt. And basically, if as it goes along and the corruption issue comes up with Biden tries to smear Trump, it's Biden to go right back. Say, look, you know, Donald Trump can actually say, Joe, he said, at least I've never had a federal prosecutor say that I was unfit to stand trial because I didn't seem to know enough. I mean, there's some one-liners, and for those of us who've done debates, you practice those, you make sure you get those in. My hope is that Donald Trump will do that and I think he will. He does good off the cuff, he does good work, but there's some times that for this particular time, because here's what's going to happen. Notice now for the next 6 weeks, with Joe Biden, you know, if he just shows up, that's a win. You know, they're going to lower the bar so far that simply breathing and saying his name, the mainstream media will say Joe Biden, you know, exceeded expectations. And, you know, I said this before. That's the Waffle House. Waffle House doesn't have enough coffee in Atlanta to keep Joe Biden as wired as he was for the State of the Union.
Man, I could go for a cup of coffee and a piece of pecan pie right now. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are now tied in the latest Reuters Ipsos poll. But take a look at some of these swing states. Trump leading at 5 out of the 6 key swing states. You know, what do you think about this? Joe Biden saying that he's not really buying the polling right now. He's not too worried about it. One of his pollsters apparently says he doesn't need to worry about it right now. But should he be worried?
Yeah, I think that's why you're also seeing possibly the debate. I think they've heard that, you know, through these focus groups that he's incompetent. And so I think I think they sort of were pushed into this debate. Now, also, I wish that from a Republican standpoint that we wouldn't have another Republican look at a poll until October, because I believe, unfortunately, that some of these polls from the left-wing media are probably not as upright as they should be when you look at the crosstabs and other things in these polls. I think they're boosting this a little bit to show a collapse by Donald Trump later. And I'm just that cynical about this stuff. So I want us to focus, those of us who want Donald Trump to win, to focus on winning, getting voters out, making our case, let the polls take care of themselves, and move forward.
Still ahead, former President Biden White House press secretary Jen Psaki has a new book out, and Gold Star families are calling out some of her lies surrounding the botched Afghan withdrawal. We'll talk to Gold Star father Steve Nakui and journalist Matthew Foldy next.
In one of Chicago's oldest bars, you can step into the shoes of some of the most notorious Prohibition-era gangsters. The Green Door Tavern hasn't changed much in 100 years. It's one of the only all-wooden structures grandfathered in after wooden construction was banned after the Great Chicago Fire in 1871. But its real history started in 1921. When owners turned an Italian restaurant called the Heron Orleans into a speakeasy. Prohibition laws outlawing the sale of alcohol gave rise to some of Chicago's most notorious mobsters. Through this secret entrance, Irish mobster Dean O'Banion, leader of the North Side Gang, stocked the shelves of this hidden basement bar, and many others like it, with plenty of illegal alcohol. Through his bootlegging operations, O'Banion set himself up as a direct rival to mobsters like Al Capone and Johnny Torrio. Like many other establishments at the time, the tavern's door was painted green to signal the presence of a speakeasy, hence the origin of its current name, the Green Door Tavern. Long after Prohibition, new owners of the business happened upon the long-forgotten secret entrance and the unspoiled speakeasy hidden below. They discovered full bottles of wine and liquor supplied by the mob were still sitting on the shelves. The Green Door Tavern stands on the street much as it did back in the days of Al Capone, warts and all. After it was completed in the 1800s, the building settled, leaning as if it were going to fall over. Fire marshals still regularly inspect it to this day, but they never find much beyond the magnificent memorabilia which overflows inside as monuments to a bygone era. And patrons still slip through the wall and head downstairs for some live entertainment. The speakeasy is now a bar within a bar called The Drifter. A rotating selection of over 100 cocktails are listed, all perfectly legal for the 21 and over crowd. So pull up a seat and eat and drink like a mobster. I'm Lucy Celia, and this is An American Place on Newsmax TV.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-316-6394.
Are you getting everything from Medicare you deserve? You need Medicare for You. It reveals how to maximize benefits while improving your health care. Medicare for You shows you how to reduce costs, improve coverage, get procedures approved, and avoid 4 big mistakes and scams. Make sure Medicare works for you. Get Medicare for You at bookstores or see the free offer. Go online now or call today. Your health is too important to wait.
Former White House press secretary and current MSNBC host Jen Psaki is being forced to retract a false claim that she made in her book titled Say More. Saki said President Biden did not check his watch during the dignified transfer of 13 U.S. troops who were killed in Afghanistan during the withdrawal. Saki attacked her former boss's critics, who she said seized on the callous moment to make him appear insensitive, concerned only about how much time had passed, claiming that he only looked at his watch after the ceremony ended. But we've all seen the photo and the videos. It tells a much different story. Saki later acknowledged to Axios that the detail and a few lines of the book about the exact number of times he looked at his watch will be removed in future reprints and the ebook, without commenting on her claims' inaccuracy. Like it's no big deal. For more on this, let's bring in political reporter at The Spectator, Matthew Foldy, and also with us here, we're very happy to have Gold Star father Steve Nakui. And you might remember, of course, Steve's son, Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Nakui, was killed in Afghanistan during the withdrawal in 2021. Gentlemen, great to have you both here with us.
Thank you so much, John.
And Steve, again, I can't express this enough. I mean, I think you're a hero to many of us who watched your protest the night of the State of the Union address. We're glad that whole situation has been cleared up. But this has got to pour new salt in this wound for you. When Jen Psaki, I mean, you write a book. Did she not read the book, or did she think she was going to get away with this? What's your reaction to it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm not a hero. My son was a hero, and so are the other 12. Yeah, it was devastating for her to talk about, you know, seizing on the moment of his, you know, adversaries to make him look bad. Well, she's seizing on that moment to gain political, you know, financial gain. And at that point, even getting financial gain, you know, for her party. And I'm going to call on Simon & Schuster, the publishing company. You know, there's thousands of copies that are out there and they'll never be retracted. They'll be out there forever. And that's misinformation. And I'm wondering what kind of, you know, moral and ethical standards that publishing company has, that they would continue to publish a book like this from an author who's outright lying at the expense of Gold Star families and their grief.
Well, I will say this. A hero always says they're not a hero. The other thing is, too, heroes make heroes. And your son definitely was a hero, and that obviously is a reflection on you. So we'll just leave it at that. But, Matthew, you're writing about this in Town Hall, and you've done such amazing work covering this story from the perspective of these Gold Star families. Tell us your reaction to this and how you think Jen Psaki and Simon & Schuster are handling it.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I agree. Steve is absolutely a hero. He's one of my heroes. And I think that while they're revising this book, instead of Say More, they could also, I could suggest a retitling called Shut the F Up, you know, about this. Because, you know, remember that when Joe Biden was at this dignified transfer, we all saw it, checking his watch time after time after time. You know, who wasn't there was Jen Psaki. And I think this speaks to the big picture that we've all seen ever since August 2021, where the Biden officials from Biden on down, right? Remember, Jen Psaki was lying from the taxpayer-funded job she had at that time to tell us that there was only about 100 Americans left stranded in Afghanistan. But from Biden on down, there has been zero accountability, and there's been nothing but lies from these people. And I think that for what the administration to normally ignore families like Steve, that's embarrassing. But for people like Jen Psaki to call them liars, and make no mistake, that's what she was doing, that's beyond shameful, actually. And I also, as you were saying, they were asking for Simon & Schuster to kind of take some sort of action about this. I reached out to Simon & Schuster right before this program to see how on earth this slipped through the cracks. And I think it's because there's this cult of Jen Psaki, and Simon & Schuster, much like Saki, wanted to make a quick buck on the backs of these American heroes, and it's totally pathetic.
Yeah. Did they say anything else, Simon & Schuster, Matthew? Were they? I would imagine they were surprised to even hear from you.
I think that's right, and so I gave them until 10 a.m. tomorrow. I would expect that they won't respond, but it's important for them to understand that there's serious concern about when you write books, you can't just make things up. And what Jen Psaki wrote about simply never happened. And we talked ad nauseum about Kristi Noem's book. Well, she wasn't lying when she said she shot her dog, right? Jen Psaki is straight up lying, saying that Biden didn't check his watch. Everyone saw it at the time. And Mark Schmitz, one of the other Gold Star family members.
And the picture, yeah.
Also,
the picture, too, is time-stamped.
And
the
everyone's
picture is
mind.
time-stamped for everyone to see. And it's like easy to Google it and see. Steve, real quickly, everyone at MSNBC, pitched a fit about the hiring of Ronna McDaniel for allegedly spreading misinformation. But people like Jen Psaki, they're not really going to pay a consequence for this. I guess you have to get used to the hypocrisy, unfortunately.
Yeah, basically that's the way it is, But here, I'll call to the American public. People like Jen Psaki, are in the public forum because people like you said have a cult following to her, and until those people are affected by it, then it's not going to change. And that's one thing that I like about the Republican Party is that they clean their own house. They're a party of morals and standards and ethics. And, if there's even a hint of a wind that you're not doing what you should be doing as an American, as a Christian, they're going to oust you. And it's sad that the other side isn't like that. And I would call on MSNBC too to force her to resign, to do something, because this is a bipartisan issue. These are service members who are given their lives so that we are afforded the ability to do what we do. So she's afforded the ability to make millions of dollars and talk and spread her lies on MSNBC. That privilege was paid for with the life of my son and other, men and women like him. And, there should be no question to this. She should be, reprimanded immediately by MSNBC and by Simon & Schuster.
After the travesty that was this withdrawal and the direct responsibility that the Biden administration has for how it went down, the least they could do is get something as simple as Joe Biden checking his watch, which nobody except for Jen Psaki seems to discount. At least get those small facts correct, but they can't even do that. It would be the decent thing to do.
Think about how callous that is.
I know. It's hard.
I almost feel like
they
did it purposely. I almost feel like they did it purposely just to sell more copies of the books. Like, here, I'm going to put this in here, even though I know it's not wrong, just to give them, just to zap those families again. Just one last zap, because I was there and I wasn't able to watch my son be transferred from the airplane into the van because I was so disgusted in the conduct of my commander-in-chief, the consoler-in-chief, right? No, not that at all. And, it was devastating.
Well, I know Matthew Foldy.
His ability, his looking at his watch, took away from my, the honor that I was supposed to have with my son that day.
Well, I look forward to reading Matthew Foldy's piece on this coming out very soon on Town Hall. And I also look forward to reading the great book that Matthew Foldy is going to write, honoring the legacy of Kareem and the other 12 who died that day. Well, after the break, the group Queers for Palestine tries to block traffic to Disney World. This is in Florida, by the way, so you can imagine what happened. We'll talk about this next.
Thomas Jefferson is credited with doubling the nation's size through the Louisiana Purchase. But it was events far beyond his control that made that purchase possible. After becoming president in 1801, Jefferson recognized the Mississippi River had become a major trade route bordering the eastern boundaries of the United States. But he also recognized its vulnerability, since the city that controlled the mouth of the Mississippi, New Orleans, was owned by the French. America's overtures to purchase the city of New Orleans were repeatedly rejected by the French until 1803, when the French Navy suffered a major defeat off the coast of what is now Haiti. Napoleon found himself needing money to rebuild his navy. Consequently, when in that same year, Secretary of State James Monroe again traveled to Paris with an offer to purchase New Orleans, he was pleasantly surprised to learn Napoleon was willing to sell not only New Orleans, but all of France's territories in the New World. The United States was ready to spend up to $10 million to purchase just the city. So when Napoleon offered to sell all of their land holdings for a total of $15 million, the future president accepted. In one action, 828,000 square miles covering the future states of Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, and Wyoming became part of America for less than 3 cents per acre. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
Cars will break down, and when they do, it's too late. If your car is out of warranty, it leaves you with 2 choices: get stuck paying for expensive repairs, or one phone call to CarShield. Their administrators pay for your covered repairs so you don't have to. Your coverage includes roadside assistance, towing, rental, and so much more. Plus, with their nationwide network, you choose the mechanic or dealer. Best of all, there's coverage for every wallet size. Make the smart call before it's too late. Call CarShield today.
I heard you weren't too happy with this particular network, Fox, but I was watching. Yeah, I understand you exactly, but not exactly friendly. Greg Kelly over at Newsmax. The Newsmax people have been really, really terrific. Newsmax has been terrific.
President Trump is right. Millions are tired of Fox, and they're switching to Newsmax Plus. It's the fastest growing streaming service in America. You don't need woke Disney and Hulu anymore. Just get Newsmax Plus. Watch the best shows like Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Greta Van Susteren, and Eric Bolling. And get incredible analysis from Dick Morris, Alan Dershowitz, Carrie Lake, Mike Huckabee, and more. It's free to start. So go to NewsmaxPlus.com now to sign up and watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. God wants to heal you and make you whole. You only need to seek His guidance and let Him in. Psychologist, Navy veteran, and former member of Congress, Dr. Tim Murphy, presents The Christ Cure. Find inspiration, guidance, and techniques to start healing through faith. You need this valuable handbook. Get your free copy now. Call the number on your screen or go online to order.
You're losing people. You are losing people to your cause because of this.
Get out of the road. 45,000 dead.
You are losing
45,000.
Think a little bit. You're causing people to actually hate you.
A Florida driver confronting Queers for Palestine, a group that was blocking access to an exit for Disney World off the interstate. Police arrested these activists just a few minutes later. Earlier this week, we spoke to Newsmax contributor Christy Clark about the ongoing anti-Israeli unrest.
I actually think that this Queers for Palestine, just in general, this pro-Palestine encampments that are happening on college campus is a red pill moment for a lot of people. I remember back, it would have been between 2013 and 2014 when I was in high school in a junior year history class. And I remember opening my textbook and seeing the Vietnam anti-war protesters, how ridiculous they acted, how they were portrayed in history as just these wild, quite rude hippies. And I felt just it shaped where I was politically as a young adult because I saw it and I was just so opposed to it. So while we might not see like an immediate red pilling of people, I do think that down the line that this is going to have major impacts on the way that Americans see this time in history.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, and I think it also provides us some contrast between, you could understand why you might not support their tactics like spitting on service members who returned from the conflict and calling them baby killers. By 1968, the Vietnam War was in its 4th year, maybe even a little longer if you consider some of the activities that were happening there prior to the actual military invasion of Vietnam, and it wasn't going well. And you could definitely take criticize the U.S. government for the way it was doing that, but we're not even a year into this conflict. It's not our war either, and these kids, they don't understand the conflict, right? And that they were, if they did, they wouldn't call themselves Queers for Palestine.
Queers for Palestine.
Let's leave that aside. Right. And part of me thinks this is just, just to make us say that, to tell myself like 4 years ago there would be a group called Queers for Palestine. It's like it's even hard to vocalize when you think about what actually goes on in the Muslim-speaking world with Islam and the way they treat same-sex relationships. All right, let's put that aside for a second too, because I want to focus some time on Jerry Seinfeld, who gave an amazing commencement address at Duke University. And if you were there to see it, consider yourself lucky. Take a look.
I can't imagine how sick you are of hearing about following your passion. I say, the hell with passion. Find something you can do, that would be great. If you try something and it doesn't work, that's okay. I will give you my 3 real keys to life, no jokes, in this part. Okay, they are, number 1, bust your ass. Number 2, pay attention. Number 3, fall in love.
Pretty simple advice, and if you're a pro-Palestinian lunatic and you decided to walk out of that commencement address, you missed all the great stuff that Seinfeld provided.
Yeah, and it's just because the speech was far too normal. I think that these pro-Palestinian people, I know it's a little rude to say, but they're just weirdos. They're kind of losers that don't have anything else to do with their time and their energy. They don't have any friends. That's why they've opted into spending all of their time in encampments and doing these weird things. So congratulations to a handful of weirdos that are walking out of graduation. This does not speak writ large for Gen Z. And as a self-appointed spokeswoman of Gen Z, I just find it incredibly infuriating that these handful of people get to speak for us when they're just the handful of losers in our generation.
Chrissy, do you watch Seinfeld, the old reruns?
No, I'm more of a Friends girl. I think I'm just a little too young for Seinfeld. I'm sorry.
Okay, I
know
can
I'm a
accept that. It makes me feel really old. But there used to be these jokes about Jerry Seinfeld. He'd be like, who are these people? When you talk about, people who would talk during movies and things like that. But here's an example of Jerry Seinfeld taking a jab at pro-Palestinian agitators at Harvard specifically. Take a look.
So on my staff in the 90s, we had a lot of Harvard guys. They were fantastic, but I could never understand why these guys were so embarrassed about being from Harvard. They would never talk about it. They would never mention it. I'm not talking about Harvard now. I'm talking about the way it used to be. You're never going to believe this. Harvard used to be a great place to go to school. Now it's Duke.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld, obviously Jewish, a great speech. And you heard from some of the students, too, at Duke that said Duke has done a very good job of containing these protests. The Jewish students there feel like they can go safe. And so Duke giving us all a lesson on how it's done. You hire Jerry Seinfeld for your commencement address, and you keep your students safe on campus. Doesn't sound that hard.
No, it's really not that hard. It's the university presidents that make it hard on themselves, the same way that the Biden administration, they try to capitulate to this handful of, like I've already said, losers that are just going to never vote for you, never going to be in favor of you, always going to need to struggle against you because that's what makes them feel like they have purpose and like they are whole. They are never going to work in tandem with you, so don't work in tandem with them. I just wish you could drill that through the minds of people so that they aren't constantly capitulating to a group that sympathizes for terrorists.
All right. Well, Chrissy, great to have you with us. And we should do a separate debate on why Friends is better, or sorry, why Seinfeld is better than Friends. And if you could, do me a favor, watch start with the episode The Sponge. It contains a hilarious scene. There's an AIDS walk parade. Kramer, Jerry's friend, is not going to wear the ribbon and the exchange. You may have seen it before. It's gone social. But that would be the place I would start. Start with the episode The Sponge. One of the best. And social commentary in there. All right. It doesn't have to be tonight, Chrissy. No rush, but we'll talk about it soon.
I'm on it.
And we'll talk about it the next time you come back on. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon on John Bachman Now. You can catch it each weekday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great rest of your weekend and stay safe.
So, folks who watch Newsmax know that I am totally outraged, as we all are really, about what President Trump is going through. These cases, they are a crime. These are crimes that they are waging against Donald Trump. This is criminal activity, putting this man in court. These cases, well, there's nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. It's amazing. And I hate that he's going through this. I hate that he's off the campaign trail. But at the same time, spectacular things are happening. And, well, I had to go there and see it myself. I went to the court today. I was actually in the courtroom. That's me outside the courthouse. I just had to kind of try to prove that I was there in some way. You can't take pictures once you're inside the court. I'm glad I went. Again, I wish I didn't have to, but I had to see it for myself. So you get into the courtroom after going through multiple layers of security, which is totally appropriate. It's kind of laid out like a, well, you've all seen a courtroom, right? Kind of like a church in a way. And I'm sitting there waiting for it to all start, about an hour, and just kind of minding my business and looking at my internet, and the prosecution comes in. All 17 of them, it seemed like. Not only these people, but all kinds of paralegals and technicians, that these employees of the government, they work for us. They're spending this kind of money on false records, allegedly. It's crazy. It's corrupt. It's wrong. Now, they came in from the front of the court, kind of like, you know, where the, I guess, if this were a church, it would be the altar. They'd come in from the far left corner. Now, as for the defense, Donald Trump and his team, they come from the back. And almost like, you know, a wedding, you know, when they come in from the back of the church, I did what kind of came natural. The President of the United States, a former President of the United States, walks into the room. I stood up instinctively. I was the only one. You don't do that. Certainly nobody in the fake news was going to stand. And apparently it's policy. I was told right away to sit down by several court officers. I don't fault them. That's the policy. I sat down, but I did say hello to President Trump, and he said hello back. And the fake news, well, they noted it. Newsmax host Greg Kelly stood and flashed a thumbs up when Trump first entered earlier in the day. Look, I wanted to see this stuff, but I also was there to support him. And they also noted, you know, these people keep their eye on everything, especially when it comes to a conservative media. They think this is negative. I actually like it. As he exited the courtroom for a quick morning break, Trump pointed to Newsmax host Greg Kelly, who stood and flashed a thumbs up. I got to do it. And it was a privilege actually to be there. So, also, very, very interesting. I know now more than ever before that Stormy Daniels is a total and complete liar. Now, here she is back in her heyday. This is what she looked like in court. And quite frankly, the court artist is being a little bit generous. Yeah, sorry, but it's been a rough time for her in that business, and it is a tough business. I'm sorry, but you know, she looked a little bit dirty, almost unwashed. I hate to say it, but it was kind of pathetic. I felt sorry for her at times, but then when I heard the lies, I lost the sympathy. The jury, I want to talk about the jury for a moment. Look, a couple of things. What can you tell? They're sitting there. The artists don't show their faces, and we understand that. They walk in right by the defense table. Not one of them looked at President Trump. I was a little bit surprised. I was a lot surprised by that, actually, and concerned. I mean, you can still be cordial, right? Apparently, it is an unwritten rule in the court system that the jurors are not supposed to look at the defendant as they come in the morning. Still, at first, I couldn't see if they acknowledged the prosecution, but they walked right by him. Also, they were all casually dressed, very casually dressed. Donald Trump is wearing a tie. His lawyers are wearing coat and tie. The prosecution, the judge, they came in like they were going to a baseball game. I don't know. What does it mean? Probably nothing, but let me talk about the makeup of the jury in terms of ethnicity and race. Normally, I don't focus on those things. You don't focus on those things, but everybody in New York sure does. And I know the prosecutors, when they were picking this jury, oh yeah. You think they were going to go to this length and just pick random jurors? I'm sure they're random in a sense, but anyway, mostly white people, one Asian man, one black woman, no black males. I don't know why that is. You know, Donald Trump is surging with black men. I don't know. Are they fearful that a black man might see through this farce right away? I don't know. I do know that they factor that in when they are screening jurors. Absolutely they do. We'll see. Susan Necklace was the chief defense attorney today, and I thought she was awesome. All right, here's what she looks like normally, and here's what she looks like in sketch form. And she cross-examined Stormy Daniels again. Remember, she, of course, is the woman who alleged a sexual encounter with Donald Trump back in 2006. Now, I always kind of thought, I had a hunch that, no, that didn't happen. And the more I learned about her and the more I learned about the circumstances, I'm like, that didn't happen. Now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know she did not have the encounter she describes with Donald Trump. There was no sexual encounter. I'll get to that in a moment. First, some interesting things I did learn as I sat there and took it all in about Stormy Daniels. The defense attorney brought out some very interesting facts about Stormy. Number one, on her book that she wrote about Donald Trump, she made $800,000 for that. Full disclosure, right? She made $200,000 for a reality show called The Surreal Life, $125,000 for a documentary called Stormy. It also emerged that she had a relationship with one of the photographers on the movie while she was married. It just came out. Anyway, what does it mean? It's just there. It came out today. What else did I learn about Stormy? Did you know that she had a comic book? Yeah, a comic book, Stormy Daniels. Also that she had a tour where she totally highlighted that she allegedly had this encounter with President Trump, stripping all over the country. Stormy Daniels, Make America Horny Again. These are all profit-making endeavors that she had as a result of her alleged hookup with Donald Trump. It all comes back to Trump. Let's see. We have this indictment candle. All right, they call her the patron saint of indictments. This is merchandise that she is selling and making money from. The candle goes for $40. She grumbled during court that she only got $7 per candle. This is another poster from her Stripping Across America tour, you know, the woman who was with Donald Trump. She says, oh, I had nothing to do with the marketing. Well, all right. What else did I see today that was interesting? Stormy Daniels talks to dead people. Yeah, she has a business where she says she can, like Whoopi Goldberg or like that kid in, what was it, The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis, talking to dead people. She says she can do that, and she charges people for money. Let's see, what else? Her boyfriend said she was crazy. Her boyfriend, according to the boyfriend, and we heard this during cross-examination, said she's crazy. It was objected to immediately. Now, I thought this was very revealing. Now, she had a couple of comebacks, you know, like, you made a lot of money off of this indictment, didn't you? And she said, like, well, so did Donald Trump. The fake news swooned. They thought, aha, wow, Stormy is in control. She's a hero. She is standing her ground. It really wasn't like that at all, all right? Stormy Daniels fights back. Well, I'm only, quite frankly, getting started because this is what she profited, how she profited. Now we catch her in a whole bunch of lies. The defense attorney, again, Necklace is her name, was amazing. So, Stormy and Trump. In 2006, allegedly, this is when it happened. Now, it's fascinating to me that Stormy Daniels, she says she went to Donald Trump's penthouse in the Harrah's Hotel and remembers everything about that room. I mean, everything. Earlier this week, she testified, well, about just about every feature in that room, from the tile to the deep wood mahogany table, the flower arrangement, the type of door to get in. It was a double door. She saw Pert shampoo and Old Spice cologne, gold tweezers, and Stormy says she walked 2 blocks to get to the hotel and then got a ride from a friend for the rest of the way. A couple of things here. She remembers all of that from a hotel that she visited for 2 hours. Stormy, where did you stay? What hotel did you stay in? I don't remember. She did not remember the hotel that she stayed in. She knew everything about this other hotel. I told you a moment ago she had to walk for a couple of blocks, and then she got a ride from a friend to get from her hotel to Donald Trump's hotel. all right? Her hotel was the Harvey Hotel. Guess where that is in relation to the Harrah's Hotel? Across the street. Across the street. If you took an Uber, Uber might not pick you up because it's 255 feet, right? You can walk. You don't take a car for a trip like that. What else? I want to emphasize this. Today's date, what is it? May 9th, 2024. She told a significantly different version of what happened in 2006 today, and certainly different from, well, what she told Anderson Cooper. She was always delighted when she told this story, by the way. She was kind of like upfront and having fun. On Jimmy Fallon, she was also kind of, I don't know, having a sweet time about the whole thing. It didn't seem traumatic. You were making all kinds of jokes. She made a documentary more recently where she tried to say that this was all incredibly traumatic. All nonsense. So again, it's today, 2024. In 2011, she spoke to In Touch magazine. I only found out about this interview. I just missed it somehow. It was an extensive interview in 2011, and basically everything she said in 2011 contradicts what she's saying now and a lot of what she said in 2018. So in 2024, now, she said that to have this dinner with Trump, she was approached by Trump's bodyguard. Mr. Trump, this is the bodyguard she's talking about. Mr. Trump was interested in having me join him for dinner. And what did you say at that time? F no. And she didn't leave it at F. She said the word, F no. Now, in 2011, this is what she told In Touch magazine. He, Donald Trump himself, asked me if I wanted to have dinner that night, and I was like, yeah, of course. Who would pass up an opportunity to talk to someone so interesting? Wow. That is a major contradiction. That is a big hole in the story that you can drive an aircraft carrier through. And there's a ton of stuff like this. Next, she's been complaining on every show that she was invited to dinner. It was dinner time. I was hungry. Yeah, we talked about ordering food and we never got to eat. On all the shows, she was, I never got to eat. However, in 2011, we ended up having dinner in the room. And she said, I don't remember what we ordered, but we had dinner. I think that's a big deal, actually. So in 2024, she's saying this about when she met Trump in 2006. He said, I thought we were getting somewhere. If you ever want to get out of that trailer park. Basically, I was offended because I never lived in a trailer park. And she's been saying that Donald Trump was somehow demeaning and, well, not very nice. But this is what she said in 2011, okay? I could tell he was nice, intelligent in conversation. She was, quite frankly, I don't know, kind of swooning over the guy. What else do we have here? Next, please. There was an imbalance of power for sure. Now, an imbalance of power. Where have we heard that? I think it was invented by the Me Too movement. I mean, it has existed throughout history, but now we have a phrase for it. What was she saying in 2011 and 2018? And yeah, I had to make him my bitch. That was actually in her book. She was in charge, right? This is Stormy Daniels. I mean, she is a woman in charge. So all this stuff really, I think, blows up her story. A couple of more, if you don't mind. Oh, yeah, there's a lot to read here. Hold on a second. This is when, right after she goes to the bathroom, right? They've been talking for 2 hours, and then she comes out of the bathroom, and she says, she alleges that she sees Trump on the bed in his underwear and undershirt. I was just startled, like jump scare. I wasn't expecting someone to be there, especially minus a lot of clothing. That's when I had that moment where I felt the room spin in slow motion. I felt the blood basically leave my hands and my feet, and almost like if you stand up too fast and everything kind of spinned, that happened too. She was so shocked by all of this. Now, the defense attorney pointed out, you've been in 250 pornographic movies. You work with naked people for the past 25 years. Why did this shock you so much? Her answer made no sense. And in 2011, it was different. He was sitting on the bed and we started kissing. All right? So I think we have one more. Okay. If I were the judge, I would have thrown this case out all right, right here. I was staring at the ceiling. I didn't know how I got there. I made note like I was trying to think about anything other than what was happening there. All right, so this week she says this is what's going through her mind when she's having sex, she says, with Donald Trump, thinking about anything else but what's actually happening. What does she say in 2011? I do remember while we were having sex, I was like, please don't try to pay me. And then I remember thinking, but I bet if he did, it would be a lot. All right, she doesn't want to be seen as a hooker. Well, none of this makes sense. She is clearly lying, clearly has no credibility, and this case must be dismissed immediately. Oh, this little tidbit. We have a phone call that they played in court today. It's interesting, when they play it, it's like, sometimes you can't hear the witnesses all that well, but when they play a recording, it's on every single speaker, and it's like stereo sound. You can hear it perfectly. A phone call between Keith Davidson, her lawyer, Stormy's lawyer, and Michael Cohen in 2016. The election is coming, and Stormy insists on being paid because if the election comes and Trump loses as she thinks he's going to lose, she will lose all leverage.
I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he comes out and says, you know what, Stormy Daniels, she wanted this money more than you can ever imagine. I remember hearing her on the phone saying, you Keith Davidson, you better settle this story, because if he loses this election, and he's going to lose, if he loses this election, we lose all leverage. This case is worth zero.
How about that one? I think that's really significant, incredibly significant. That judge should be ashamed of himself, and all the prosecutors too, and every taxpayer in this city and beyond. Now it's happening all over the country. This is outrageous. It has to stop. And I think it's blowing up. We'll see. I'm not at home in the court, by the way. I'm a little bit lost down there. Here I am. I could not figure out where Stormy Daniels was. I was looking for her. I had to talk to her. I really wanted to just kind of have a word with her about this whole thing. I thought I could talk some sense into her, but they said, leave her alone. Just kidding. I was looking for the men's room. All right. I'm glad I did that. Donald Trump, support you and praying for you. We'll be right back.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Before becoming a household name, as a young soldier, he was on board an Army aircraft that crashed into the ocean off California. In the dead of night, using a raft and his training as a professional lifeguard, he and the surviving pilot swam over 2 miles to safety. Clinton Eastwood, Jr. was born in San Francisco on May 31st, 1930. With a birth weight of 11 pounds 6 ounces, his nurses nicknamed him Samson. Little Clint was no ordinary child. He is a descendant of Plymouth Colony's first governor, William Bradford, and also said to be a descendant of Charlemagne, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire.
I don't think it's nice you laughing.
In a career spanning over 6 decades, the entertainment legend would gain recognition as an actor, producer, director, musician, and even politician after being elected mayor of Carmel, California. His early acting years were unimpressive, but all that changed in 1958 when Eastwood was cast as Rowdy Yates in the TV series Rawhide. When the series ended, his career rocketed to international status when he starred in the spaghetti western A Fistful of Dollars. A box office success, it was followed by For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He became the 1970s biggest male box office star with his Dirty Harry franchise, playing a tough San Francisco detective who wouldn't play by the rules.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Clint's creative ability was broad, and soon he showed it directing movies. First with Play Misty for Me Made for only $750,000, it earned the studio just under $11 million. Clint Eastwood's directing career had begun. Nominated 11 times, Eastwood has won 4 Oscars: Best Director for Unforgiven, Best Picture for American Sniper, and Best Director and Best Picture for $1 Million Baby. Clint also played a cameo in the 2012 Republican Convention, stealing the spotlight from nominee Mitt Romney as he took on an empty chair. Few have had such a remarkable life so far. Clint Eastwood has written the musical scores for 8 films, appeared in over 200 television shows, acted in 64 pictures, directed another 40, and produced 25 features. And he's not finished yet. You're watching An American Life on Newsmax TV.
Hi folks, we're back. If you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault and you don't have an attorney, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions and tell you what your case is potentially worth. Pick up the phone, call now.
There's not a legitimate right to use hate speech. There's not a legitimate right to threaten Jewish students. There's not a legitimate right to block people access to class. That's against the law. That's against the law.
I mean, he's having problems saying the word legitimate. It happens to everybody sooner or later, but it happens to him 18 times a day. And he's been so weak, however he says it, on actually the message itself, making it clear that what's happening shouldn't happen. But it's happening because, well, he can't and won't do much to stop it because of politics. A disgraceful interview on CNN. This man, there was this.
The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of the American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along.
Well, that's inadequate, and he's wrong. And the Michigan survey, personally, I'm familiar, but we're all familiar with the general anxiety about what's happening in this country, and people are demanding a change. Now, perhaps the worst, though, was Israel, our sacred ally, that sacred country in so many ways, doing what it must do in Rafah, eradicating Hamas. They cannot let October 7th happen again. And now they will be doing it without American weapons. This is so wrong in so many ways. And actually, it's the opposite of what Joe Biden once pledged to Israel back when he was vice president. Actually an ex-vice president during the campaign when he was trying to get people to like him. And now that he's got power, things have changed. But, well, look at what happened in 2019 and look at what he's saying now in 2024.
I strongly oppose Israel's settlement policy on the West Bank. I've made that clear to Bibi when I was vice president. I made it crystal clear to the Israelis. But the idea that we would cut off military aid to an ally, our only true ally in the entire region, is absolutely preposterous. It's just beyond my comprehension anyone would do that. Civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of those bombs and other ways in which they go after population centers. And I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem.
So he's doing something that he said was preposterous, beyond his comprehension. Yeah, it's horrible that in war, women and children die. And Israel does everything it possibly can to minimize that. But collateral damage has been and always will be a part of war. It's one of the many reasons why you only fight a war when you absolutely have to. And this war, well, it's imperative. It must be fought. And what he is doing is revolting. He is a revolting man, let's face it. What did that poet say? When somebody tells you who you are, believe him, right? Well, I'm actually wondering about the black vote this fall. I think Donald Trump will shock the world because this comment, mainstream media may have downplayed it, may have ignored it, but it's there. All right, now first, this is how Joe approaches black families today in controlled settings and using just empty phrases and pablum.
You know, Mr. President, I'll tell you, we grew up in a working class family, so it was 5 of us living in a household in the city of Detroit. It's important for us to know that our values are there, making sure that we have, you know, the income and things in place to make sure that we can take care of our families.
There are 4 of us in our family. I'm the oldest of 3 boys and a girl. We lived in I guess you'd call it a modest middle-class neighborhood, a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids. My dad used to have an expression. He'd say, family's the beginning, the middle, and the end.
His dad didn't say that. Dad didn't say a lot of things. Anyway, that's it. That was it. That was it. I don't know what the takeaway is. These are what all the videos seem to look like these days from Joe. I remember this one. In fact, I will never, ever, ever forget it, and I think millions of Americans won't either.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
See what I mean? We'll be right back.
It was a night filled with stars as Hollywood came out in strength to honor its own at the 42nd Academy Awards. Nominated for Best Actor that year were Dustin Hoffman, Jon Voight, Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, and John Wayne. Born Marion Morrison in Winterset, Iowa, even at birth, the future movie icon was breaking records, weighing in at 13 pounds. After graduating from USC on a football scholarship, this young man became an aspiring actor, changed his name to John Wayne, and the rest became box office history. A veteran of some 150 films, Wayne received his first Best Actor Award nomination in 1939 for his role in The Sands of Iwo Jima. It would take more than 3 decades later, until April 7, 1970, before the Academy honored him once again. But this time, he won the Best Actor Award for his role as a one-eyed sheriff in True Grit.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think this is a great country.
Actress Maureen O'Hara, when asked to describe her friend, summed up the man best with 3 words: John Wayne, American. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
Some breaking news. Famed political strategist Dick Morris says Donald Trump is running for president. Few people know President Trump better than Dick Morris. For years, Morris has served as his top advisor. Now, in his new bestseller, The Return, Dick reveals Trump's secret plan for 2024, his real reason for running, and his coming surprise announcement. Dick says Trump still faces 3 threats, but Biden can never be reelected. Newsmax calls The Return the only political book you need to read. It's already an Amazon #1 bestseller. If you want to see Trump's plan, Dick Morris shares it. Big media, big tech, and the deep state all want to stop Trump. But The Return shows they'll fail, and Trump will triumph. Get Dick Morris's The Return in bookstores everywhere, or see the free offer from Newsmax. Go online or call today.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do.
Our firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, thousands with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them against those responsible. We have local offices throughout the U.S. Mesothelioma really is all we do, and there is no risk to you. Let us put a plan in place for you and your family. Call now.
Call us at 800-300-5350, 800-300-5350.
This right here is confidence in a bottle. It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-316-6394.
President Trump, back when he was president, back when we had peace and prosperity. Sure, you may remember there was a little drama at the White House because, you know what? The deep state, the swamp, they were trying to sabotage his administration. And a lot of weaklings, actually, well, they came and went. They had their own agenda. They didn't stick around for too long, right? There were a lot of people who were leaking and that kind of thing, and a lot of turnover at the White House. There wasn't a lot of turnover, though, at the Trump Organization, and I think this really tells you something. These are good people who wanted to do a good job and perform a service. People like Jeff McConney. He testified this week during this fake trial. 36 years at the Trump Organization, 36 years working for Donald Trump. This woman also had to testify this week, 24 years, Deborah Tassaroff, at the Trump Organization. You don't stay a couple of decades at a job where the boss is not a good man. I'm sorry, I don't think you do. Rona Graff, she was there for 3+ decades working for Donald Trump, his executive assistant. And also Alan Weisselberg. He went to work, some of these people went to work for Donald Trump in the 1980s. And the swamp came after him. So many of them had to hire lawyers. Why? Because Donald Trump wanted to do something for his country. That man's in jail right now, and it is so unfair. It's actually illegal in my book. All right, something else. The fake news. You know, it's funny, when they're not doing the news, some of them are nice people. But when they're doing the news, they pretend to be neutral. I'm an opinion guy. I am very upfront about that. He pretends to be just calling the facts, right? Just balls and strikes. He's Mr. Neutral. And his panelists, well, they can be a bit more opinionated, so he makes sure he gets them from across the political spectrum. This is Jonathan Karl when he fills in on the George Stephanopoulos show.
Joined now by the Powerhouse Roundtable. We have NPR White House correspondent Uzma Khalid, The View co-host Alyssa Farah-Griffin, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas in her debut here on This Week, Washington Post columnist David Ignatius, author of the new book, Phantom Orbit, a Thriller.
And they are all ideologically on the same page. They hate Trump. Even the Republicans hate Trump. David Ignatius, notorious columnist for the Washington Post, big Trump hater. This brand new congresswoman, big Trump hater. Alyssa Farah-Griffin, not only a Trump hater, a Trump traitor. Hey, but she's got great hair, and that's all it seems that matters over there in the fake news. This person, I'm not as familiar with, but she does work at NPR. All right, next, please. Oh, remember this person?
I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. I didn't give him money in a contract, so that was cute. But I didn't give him money out in a contract. What happened? No, we're going to answer it since you said it. Don't be cute with me and then think that you're not going to get an answer.
When you got cash to pay him back on these trips, would you go to the ATM?
No, lady. So the cash that you gave him, that could have been used to pay the tax lien off? You gonna tell me how to pay my bills? I'm not going to emasculate a black man. Did you understand that?
Wow. Nasty, dumb, and a little bit racist, actually. Fani Willis, you know, she is still technically on the case. The judge ordered her boyfriend off the case, but she's still on it, maybe. Georgia Appeals Court agrees to review ruling Fani Willis to stay on Trump election case. So the judge may be overruled by the appeals court and she would be done. Remember, she got in trouble, well, because Nathan Wade, her boyfriend, she put on the case. He had no experience and paid him a whole mess of money. And it looked like he was giving her a lot of that money, or at least they were spending it on the same stuff. This guy has some pretty avant-garde feelings about the monogamy.
Workplace romances are as American as apple pie. It happens to everyone. But it happened to the two of us.
Do you regret it?
I regret that private matter became the focal point of this very important prosecution.
Workplace affairs are as American as apple pie. That's not what HR says. That's not what spouses across America say, and it ain't what the Bible says either. Good luck with that, Nathan Wade. I'll be right back.
It's a region of the world that has known little peace since the beginnings of recorded history. But in September of 1978, President Sadat of Egypt, Prime Minister Begin of Israel, and President Carter of the United States set out to change that. Initiated by the Egyptian leader's proclamation that he would be willing to travel anywhere, even Jerusalem, to seek peace, President Carter persuaded the two former enemies to meet with him at Camp David to seek a lasting peace. On the 17th of September, 1978, the Camp David Accords were signed, returning the Sinai to Egypt and creating a framework by which Palestinians could have autonomous and self-governing control over the West Bank and Gaza. During the announcement, President Carter was clear more work needed to be done.
The questions that have brought warfare and bitterness to the Middle East for the last 30 years will not be settled overnight.
In 1978, President Anwar Sadat and Prime Minister Menachem Begin were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Jimmy Carter's Nobel Prize would come later in 2002 for his decades of work seeking solutions to international conflicts. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Is your faith being weaponized? There's a dark force manipulating the Word of God. They're known by different names: Christian left, progressives, and woke Christianity. Don't be fooled. These fake Christians want to convert you. Woke Jesus has been written to expose this very real threat. You'll need this book to stop them before it's too late. Get your free copy today with our special offer. Call now or go online to order.
That is Franklin Graham, shaking hands with that man. Franklin Graham, the legendary evangelical Christian, the president of Samaritan's Purse, and of course the son of the late, great Billy Graham. He's here to talk about, well, liberal ideology infecting so many of our iconic institutions like the Boy Scouts. But first, Franklin Graham, welcome again. And so much seems to be going wrong right now, but are you feeling like some things are going right at the same time? I just came from the courthouse. The case against President Trump seems to be disintegrating along with the others. I just seem to be reminded regarding that and a lot of other things that God is the one who's in control.
No question. But we as a people, as a nation, we make choices, and those choices, those decisions we make can affect not only the course of a country, but the course of a nation. And we have turned our back on God as a people, as a nation. We have committed great sins against Him. And so why should God look after or protect us if we're going to turn our back on Him? So yes, God's in control, but He also lets us go our own way sometimes, and He'll just turn His back and let us disintegrate.
Well, we do know He loves us. We are free to make mistakes, and so many of us are making those mistakes, and we're making them culturally. And this thing about the Boy Scouts is so kind of heartbreaking. I was in the Boy Scouts. They're now kind of sexualizing it all over again and desexualizing it at the same time. You know what's happening there. Girl Scouts are in. They're all talking about the woke stuff and define yourself by your gender or your orientation. And this is a horrific development, isn't it?
Well, the Boy Scouts, and let me speak to that. I was never a Girl Scout, but I was a Boy Scout. And at one time, that was one of the greatest institutions in America. People trusted the Boy Scouts. And let me just read their oath. This is the Scout oath. On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Now, the problem you have here, Greg, is that the leadership of the Boy Scouts don't even follow the Scout oath, and that is to do the duty to God. They have turned their back on God as an organization, and to be morally straight. This is one of the problems they have right now, is they're not morally straight, and they have been sued, and they had to go into Chapter 11, and this organization at one time had over 5 million scouts, and today it's less than 1 million. It just shows you what happens when you lose sight of your compass. And I would encourage the scouts, because again, this was a great organization, to go back to its roots and go back to what it's known for, and do it right. And they've compromised on this moral issue. God's not going to put up with that. And they went in 2000. They went all the way to the Supreme Court to keep people who were gays who wanted to be scoutmasters and so forth, and they went all the way to the Supreme Court to keep them out. Then they reversed, they back up. They've changed this, and now transgenders and others can come in. And so morally, it's just they've fallen off the cliff. And it's a shame, because this was a great institution, was a great organization, but it's not their day, and they don't have the trust of the American people. Parents today, by and large, are not going to send their kids to one of these scouting groups. They're going to go to some of the newer ones that out there that are faith-based, strong Christians, and now their numbers are increasing while the scouts are decreasing. I think I'm sorry for the scouts. I wish they would wake up and see what they've done.
All right. Well, so the institutions, so many of our institutions are turning away from God, but I mean, maybe that's a sign right there. People are not joining the scouts. I feel like hopefully people are turning more and more to God. We know the numbers of church attendance obviously down for a long time, but Do you sense a change? I mean, yes, God can let us make mistakes, but he can also let us make mistakes for a purpose and adversity, and then we wake up and then we're drawn closer to him. Hopefully that can happen too, and I hope you see signs of it happening.
Well, we've got some great churches in this country, and no question, church attendance among many mainline churches has fallen off because they quit teaching the Bible. And as a result of that, people just aren't interested in going. Churches that are growing are churches that open up where the pastor opens up the Bible on Sunday and teaches what God has to say. People want to hear what God has to say. And God's very clear, and he's very clear on his moral instructions. And the only way to God is through faith in his Son, Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. There's not many roads to God. There's only one road, and that's through the cross of Jesus Christ, where he died and shed his blood for our sins. He was buried for our sins. On third day, God raised his Son to life. That's the only hope for our country. It's the only hope for a person individually. Only hope for our family is the Almighty God and his Son, Jesus Christ. And I would encourage people to turn to him.
Franklin Graham, we thank you so much. And that is a wonderful journey when you take it and when you stay on it. And sometimes we fall off it. Franklin Graham, where are you right now? It is the most magnificent scene I've ever seen. It looks like you're in a little slice of heaven. Is that real, or what's going on there?
I'm in North Carolina, and let me just say, North Carolina is a little slice of heaven.
Oh, absolutely. It looks absolutely perfect. Well, Franklin Graham, thank you very much. Everyone should see or go to Samaritan's Purse, SamaritansPurse.org, and look at some of the amazing work that organization has been doing. Franklin Graham, many thanks, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Is your faith being weaponized? There's a dark force manipulating the Word of God. They're known by different names: Christian left, progressives, and woke Christianity. Don't be fooled. These fake Christians want to convert you. Woke Jesus has been written to expose this very real threat. You'll need this book to stop them before it's too late. Get your free copy today with our special offer. Call now or go online to order.
Attention families with a loved one in a nursing home. If your loved one has suffered from bed sores, falls, broken bones, dehydration, or even death, you may be entitled to a substantial settlement. If you have a loved one who is injured in a nursing home, we will find out what happened. State violations are found against nursing homes every day. You have a limited time to file your claim, so don't wait. Call 800-710-5444 and speak with one of our attorneys. The call is confidential and free.
I heard you weren't too happy with this particular network, Fox, but I was watching. Yeah, I understand you exactly, but not exactly friendly. Greg Kelly over at Newsmax. The Newsmax people have been really, really terrific. Newsmax has been terrific.
President Trump is right. Millions are tired of Fox, and they're switching to Newsmax Plus. It's the fastest growing streaming service in America. You don't need woke Disney and Hulu anymore. Just get Newsmax Plus. Watch the best shows like Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Greta Van Susteren, and Eric Bolling. And get incredible analysis from Dick Morris, Alan Dershowitz, Carrie Lake, Mike Huckabee, and more. It's free to start. So go to NewsmaxPlus.com now to sign up and watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere.
By mid-1944, German military occupation engulfed the continent of Europe, while across the English Channel, an armada of men and equipment was preparing to take it back. On the 5th of June, Allied armies from the United States, Great Britain, and Canada joined those from Australia, Belgium, Czechoslovakia, France, Greece, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, and the Netherlands, and set sail for the Normandy coast. But they weren't all soldiers. At morning's first light, London bureau chief for the future NBC radio network, George Hicks, broadcasting live from the deck of an American ship, provided Americans back home with a front row seat.
side. Rangers are making an arc right over our bow now.
Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower also used that same venue, radio, to inspire both his troops and the nations they were being sent to set free.
The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory.
The date was D-Day, June 6th, 1944. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
Oh boy, what do we say about Kristi Noem? I think she took this, I don't know, I'm just a regular gal stuff a little bit too far. The thing with the dog, no way, can't have it, can't have it, can't handle it. Sorry, you have rendered yourself ineligible for high office. You can't kill a dog like that under any circumstances, never, ever, ever. I mean, unless it was rabid or something like that, it was coming at you like Cujo, otherwise. And you heard about Kim Jong-un, she met him somehow, and now she won't talk about it. It's very weird. So Rob Finnerty, who hosts the Wake Up Show here, he had to let her have it, and check it out.
Governor, if you asked me a month ago, who's at the top of the list to run with Donald Trump, I would have said your name. If you asked me that same question this morning, I don't even think you're on the list.
Really?
So my question for you, yes, really, and it's because of things that have come out in this book, like your claims that you met Kim Jong-un, and then over the last week,
I've been to the DMZ, I've been to the area. What I've said
is that... Did you stare down Kim Jong-un? Let me, Governor, 1 second. I will give you an opportunity to respond. I just want to get this out there. So here's the quote from the book. You say that, I remember when I met North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. Governor, that never happened, did it?
What I have said in the book is that when I became aware of the content, that we had it changed. And that's the way that it is. So I should not have put that anecdote in the book. That I'm not going to talk about my meetings. But an anecdote indicates
that it happened, right?
I'm not going to talk about my conversations with world leaders. I've been involved in policy for 30 years. For 30 years, I've been traveling the world, talking to world leaders, and that is a conversation that I'm not going to have in this book.
I don't know. When you start exaggerating, I mean, her real story, the true story, 30 years ago, her dad died, and it was such a trauma. Now, I know she's written about that, but I don't... So she had such a big future. I think she's got to just kind of lay low for a while. Maybe 4 years, 8 years. In 25 years, she'll still be younger than Donald Trump. There's time to recover from all this and figure out, you know, what's going on upstairs and get better. All right. So we have two very strange moments. One is Kamala Harris, and the other is the woman who introduces Kamala Harris. She's almost more interesting and amusing. This is the woman who introduces Kamala. Watch.
We are about to talk with one of the most capable, influential, bold, and fearless thinkers ever. This human right here isn't out to connect some of us. She is here to connect all of us. And this human being just happens to be a woman.
Well, so far, she's actually weirder than Kamala. Let's see what happens next.
Let me just tell you, you guys are going to have to be ready for this. Ready for certain language. And I said very loudly, ovaries.
Fallopian tubes.
And fallopian tubes, right?
Uterus.
Fibroids.
Thank
you. Testicles. I mean, who... Very, very strange. They're perfect for each other. Sorry about the comment. I'll be right back.
Space shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
During an interview, she remarked, if offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get in. Born Sharon Krista Corrigan on September 2, 1948, the future astronaut was the oldest of 5 children. She spent her younger years in Farmington, Massachusetts, and attended Marion High School, where she met her future husband, Stephen McAuliffe. Krista McAuliffe's historic adventure began with this announcement.
And to choose as the first citizen passenger in the history of our space program, one of America's finest, a teacher.
In 1984, NASA started its search for a gifted teacher who could communicate with students from space. Over 11,000 educators applied, but in the end, NASA chose Krista McAuliffe, a high school social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire, to be their teacher in space. The following is a portion of her actual interview with NASA.
The shuttle project and the shuttle flight is certainly going to be a dream and a thrilling experience for me, but it will even be more wonderful to share it with the people back home.
As customary in preparation for their space flight, McAuliffe and fellow crew members underwent rigorous training. 6 fellow astronauts joined Krista McAuliffe on that fateful journey. They were Michael J. Smith, Dick Scobie, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and Judith Resnick. The morning of the launch, the temperature was a chilly 36 degrees, a factor that played a major role in the tragedy. At 11:39 a.m. on January 28, 1986, Challenger lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center and into the annals of history. 73 seconds into the launch, at an altitude of 46,000 feet, an O-ring in its rocket booster, made brittle by the cold, failed under maximum power.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Causing an explosion and ripping the spacecraft apart. 2 minutes and 45 seconds later, the main cabin of the space shuttle splashed into the Atlantic Ocean at a speed of 200 miles an hour. The remains of the crew were recovered and returned to their families for burial, but not before being posthumously awarded the Congressional Space Medal of Honor. Krista McAuliffe was laid to rest in the town who knew her best, Concord, New Hampshire. You're watching An American Life on Newsmax TV.
Hi folks, we're back. If you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault and you don't have an attorney, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions and tell you what your case is potentially worth. Pick up the phone, call now.
Mattered as much as mine, it mattered as much as anyone's in this country. And at least it should have. An act of brutality so elemental, it did more than deny one more black man in America his civil rights and his human rights. It denied him of his very humanity. It denied him of his life. I can't breathe. George Floyd's last words, but they didn't die with him. They're still being heard, echoing all across this nation. George Floyd's last words, I can't breathe. I can't breathe, have echoed all across this nation and quite frankly around the world. Now is the time for racial justice. That's the answer we must give to our children when they ask why. Because when there is justice for George Floyd, we will truly be on our way to racial justice in America. Even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact.
You see this? You see the exploitation, the pandering? Why can't he be this passionate about Jews under assault on college campuses across this country? Because he is a craven, amoral, career politician in it for himself and nobody else. He stands for nothing. It is pathetic. By the way, the cops, George Floyd, that matter, everybody's been lied to about it. Okay, this is a quick one. The first moment my younger daughter, Madeline, goes underwater. She did not like it, but I had a coach kind of, it's the very first time. It's tough, and you wipe the water off the face. So much fun. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power.
We are now all rooting for his success. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
We don't live in the United States of America as is any of us would like to understand it.
We have a peaceful transition of power process. That's not what happened.
They interviewed General Flynn, and they did it in what was a complete ambush.
I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
And the audience was, ha, 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 ha. How funny to set up an innocent man.
This is what third world security states do. They spy on their political opponents like this.
This is part of a Russian influence operation.
Russian interference.
They colluded. They were in on it.
He would constantly say, I have seen evidence of collusion.
Until this is released, I can't comment. I can't go into the particulars.
Russians, I'm not going to be specific. But he knew he could just say it on TV and then hide behind, well, it's all classified, I can't get into it.
Well, it's classified. You can't see it.
Collusion. You just got to be willing to see it.
New York's Daily News ran this front page, Trump is Hitler.
How could 62 million Americans vote for Hitler? Are 62 million Americans Nazis?
Like, really, you're not going to accept that you lost this election?
Then they see the Russia collusion narrative sitting right there in front of them and say, why don't we just say that he cheated?
It divided the country in ways that people can't imagine. It's inspired massive violence. It's given people who are bad faith actors a license to do whatever they want because they literally feel like they're fighting Russian spies and Nazis.
Russiagate has been the most egregious abuse of everything that was supposed to have been good about our government.
The thing that they were investigating the Trump campaign for is what they themselves were doing.
President Carter pledged the utmost in cooperation in the transition that will take place.
I will always be grateful. Can hardly believe it, but it's sinking in now, the enormity of what has taken place. Peaceful election, eventually a peaceful transfer of power.
I accept tonight the responsibility that you have given me to be the leader of this, the greatest country in human history.
I have a lot to be thankful for tonight. I'm thankful for America and thankful that we are able to resolve our electoral differences in a peaceful way. This peaceful transfer of power is one of the hallmarks of a true democracy.
President Carter, President Bush Sr., as well as the current president have all been very gracious and offered to provide any help that they can in this transition process.
We are now all rooting for his success in uniting and leading the country. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear None of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team.
The only thing we had wrong is it was worse than we thought. Devon was the first, because he got to see information first. As then chair of the Intelligence Committee, he sensed there was wrongdoing early on.
He was a lone voice for a very long time. We would not be where we are without Devon Nunes.
They started it right after, the 1st of December 2016.
It's becoming clear we have suffered a desecration of our democracy not seen since Watergate.
It was right after the election, and I thought, are they really going to go down this road of this Russia issue?
This is part of a concerted Russian influence operation.
Russian interference. They colluded. They helped. They were in on it.
Vladimir Putin was the person who authorized the interference in our election.
What Russia did was no different than what they do all the time. It was totally expected. Right after the election, a couple weeks, then I realized, like, wow, they're just really starting to foment this, and we really almost thought it was a joke, like those of us on the Republicans on the committee, like, really, you're not going to accept that you lost this election? We're really going to go into this?
My hope is that the president-elect is going to similarly be concerned with making sure that we don't have potential foreign influence in our election process.
And then Obama and Brennan made it real by creating what I call Obama's dossier, which was this intelligence community assessment, which was the fastest any government agency's ever done a report. And of course, they took just a few weeks and they said, oh yeah, the Russians were trying to help Trump. You know, Obama really was going to stick it to the Russians, and he kicked some people out of the country.
35 Russian diplomats in the U.S. expelled, just 72 hours to leave. Closing 2 Russian government compounds, rec centers allegedly used for spying, shut down as of noon Friday.
We used the Ways and Means Committee to hold what is a pretty unusual public hearing for the Intelligence Committee. James Comey comes in, then he asks me to come back to the back room and tells me that he's going to publicly announce they're looking into the Trump campaign. And I was like, wow, does he have new information? Is there something new?
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election.
It blew up into a spectacle. It gave the appearance that this was a real investigation with real information, even though we had yet to see what that real information was.
I interviewed a number of extraordinary candidates for this job, all with sterling credentials. But what gave me confidence that this was the right man for the job was in talking to him, a sense that this is somebody who knows what's right and what's wrong.
The FBI's reputation for integrity is a gift given to every new employee by those who went before. No case, no source, no fear of embarrassment is worth jeopardizing the gift of integrity.
Comey has a great history of fabricating crimes and trapping innocent citizens in crimes that otherwise would not be committed by leading the victim to believe that a truthful answer to a question would be an admission to a crime, whereas in fact it would not be an admission to a crime. When the subject then lies, he's bagged his quarry. He did that with Martha Stewart. He later did the same thing to Scooter Libby through his special counsel that he appointed, Patrick Fitzgerald. Later on, they did the same thing with George Papadopoulos. He did the same thing with Michael Flynn.
Mike is one of 9 children, blue-collar background, decided to enter the military and rose to the rank as 3-star general, a lieutenant general in the Army, a man who put his life on the line for our country on numerous occasions. He was well-versed in the secrets of our country.
Before he became the director of Defense Intelligence, was made responsible for all intelligence collection in Afghanistan as the theater MI guy. What Mike Flynn did was truly stunning. He revolutionized the way we do intelligence in theater, in the battlefield. He understood that when you're fighting groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, it is the rapidity and the quality of immediately exploitable intelligence that matters the most. When you go in there on your raid with your alpha team, or the stuff you pick up right there has got to be exploited now. You don't put it in a bag, you don't put it on a secure server, send it back to Langley or to Fort Meade and then sit on it for 9 months and then see if it's useful.
When Donald Trump was elected President of the United States, he flew to Washington, D.C. for a meeting with Barack Obama. And in that meeting, Barack Obama told him unequivocally, don't let anybody tell you who to hire in your administration. You must surround yourself with your own people, except General Mike Flynn. The president flew back to New York that night, and I remember speaking to him very directly. And he said, what job are we giving Mike Flynn? I said, any job you want, sir. And then the offer was extended for Mike to become the National Security Advisor.
The Obama administration was after him for defying them on Iran and on other questions. You know, they fired him from the DIA. And famously, in their Oval Office meeting after the election, Obama said to incoming President-elect Trump, you know, there's basically two people in the world that you can't trust. One is Putin and the other is Mike Flynn. I mean, give me a break.
We talked about reforming the intelligence community because these 17 sprawling agencies, they've gotten a lot of stuff wrong. The weapons of mass destruction being the most obvious example.
Every intelligence agency, every bureaucracy is worried about being reformed. So Flynn had been loud and clear that he did not like the intelligence that he was getting when he was in the field. He did not get what he called actionable intelligence.
And then there are probably reasons why the intel bureaucracies are specifically resistant to change, because they really are unaccountable. If you're unaccountable for a long time, you get used to being unaccountable, and accountability sounds bad. Like, you don't want to have to, if you haven't never answered to anybody, you don't want to have to answer to somebody. Especially when some of the things you've been doing when exposed might make you look bad.
As you know, when this attack happened, the White House initially said it arose out of a spontaneous protest over an anti-Muslim video. That turned out not to be true, and the White House said they relied entirely on CIA talking points.
We haven't put any demands on them. We have used this soft power approach.
Mike Flynn is viewed as the consummate disruptor, and now he was going to be in a position to bring that disruption to the entire national security community. So he's moved up a level, and his ability to impact is now going to be much more widespread. And of course, this absolutely terrifies the Central Intelligence Agency. It terrifies the FBI. Because somebody who knows where all of the secrets are is now going to be in a position to really harness that knowledge to disrupt things.
He's the former director of the DIA. He knew where the bodies were buried. He knew the corruption. He knew the lies. He knew the perversion of the threat environment.
He knew what was going on, and he objected. He knew about the machinations by the Obama administration and the West generally to support terrorists in Syria in their crazed effort to take out Assad. Of course, a lot of that was being organized out of Libya.
When he spoke up against the Obama administration and said, look, just because you killed Osama bin Laden doesn't mean that you've stopped radical Islamic movements. And General Flynn predicted the rise of Islamic extremism.
I'm done trying to convince our president to actually define this enemy. We know what it is. It's radical Islamic terrorism. They are vicious, they're barbaric, they are on the march.
They didn't like Mike Flynn. Remember, Barack Obama fired Mike Flynn because he was a rabble-rouser.
The reason that Flynn had been fired is because he was speaking the truth about ISIS. The straw that broke the camel's back was what's now been very well known as this testimony that Flynn did. It was the global threat testimony, where all of the heads of the intelligence agencies, John Brennan, Jim Comey, all of the people that later on would be part of the effort to take Michael Flynn down and ultimately take Trump down. Flynn had been raising the alarm about how the Obama administration was not taking the necessary steps to protect the American people from the growing Islamic threat. And Flynn was told before he went into that testimony, do not say anything about the fact that ISIS is resurgent. He decided, I'm not going to lie. You know, I need to be very, very honest with the American people.
They are increasingly adapting to an environment that is actually benefiting them. And that, to me, is a increasingly growing threat.
After that, Jim Clapper calls Mike Vickers up, and Clapper tells Vickers, you need to fire Flynn. Clapper had received this instruction directly from Susan Rice at the request of Barack Obama. In any event, they tell him, you're going to have to retire early. We need you to leave the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Of all the people who came into the White House, Mike Flynn was the most dangerous to the swamp. He had to be taken out. They knew he knew what the intelligence community was up to, and he knew what Obama had done to undermine our national security for 8 years. He knew why Obama did what he did with Iran. $140 billion released to a regime that every Friday says, destroy America, that you're actually facilitating the rise of the theocratic Iranian regime that's taking our naval personnel hostage.
President Obama negotiated the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. It was fatally flawed on so many different levels. So when you have somebody like a General Flynn serving at the highest levels in the room, making recommendations, weighing in on work product, and telling the other 97% of a story on a weak, flawed approach to a particular conflict, that ends up leading to increased resentment.
The Obama administration earlier today allowed the United Nations to pass a resolution condemning Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank as, quote, a flagrant violation of international law.
He expelled 35 diplomats from the United States. It was a silly act, unnecessarily provocative, and it was grandstanding. It was to no purpose.
I'm going to tell you something. They're going to call you chicken if you don't swim. You are the world record holder. And the premier Olympic swimming event is the 100 freestyle.
With those words from his coach, Olympic history was made. Born Mark Andrew Spitz in the little town of Modesto, California, the future Olympian record holder began his swimming career at the age of 2 in the Hawaiian waters of Waikiki Beach. 4 years later, Mark and his family moved to Sacramento, California, and by age 10, he held 17 national age group records and 1 world record. But the best was yet to come. After a disappointing performance at the 1968 Olympics, the Shark, as nicknamed by his teammates, returned to the Olympic Games in 1972, determined to do better. As history records, at the 20th Olympiad, Mark Spitz won 7 gold medals and set 7 world records in the process. But it almost didn't happen. After winning his 5th gold medal, the Olympic champion faced his toughest competitor, Australian Michael Wendon, in what Spitz had always considered his toughest race, the 100-meter freestyle. He thought seriously of withdrawing from the biggest race of his career. But with encouragement from his coach, Spitz reconsidered and changed history. Spitz's achievement gave America a boost internationally as the nation suffered in global public opinion from its long war in Vietnam. And Spitz's victory in the sports arena was especially gratifying. As an American Jew, his victories cast a powerful shadow over the Palestinian Liberation Organization's Munich terrorism, when 11 Israeli athletes were held hostage and eventually murdered by the group belonging to the Black September organization. Despite the horrors and his own nail-biting competition, Mark Spitz always maintained his sense of humor. The night before competition was to begin, he was asked by a Russian reporter why he wore a mustache. Although he had planned to shave it that very night, he replied,
I said, no, it doesn't slow me down. I said, it deflects the water away from my mouth. It allows my head to get a lot lower and more streamlined, my behind actually up, and so that's why I was able to break the world record at the Olympic trials in Chicago 3 weeks before. The guy looked at me and hesitated, and then he translated as fast as he could into Russian. All male Russian swimmers the next year had a mustache.
For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
Heart attacks can happen at any time. If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of surviving.
That's why this world-renowned cardiologist brings you the Simple Heart Cure diet and meal plan.
Start improving your heart health now with this easy-to-follow program that combines expert advice with hundreds of delicious heart-healthy recipes. See improvements in as little as 28 days. Claim your free copy today. Go online or call the number on your screen.
For those who aren't familiar with it, federal government provides resources for the last two candidates to establish transition teams to help their prospective presidential nominee take over government should they win.
There's nothing wrong or unusual about an incoming transition team talking to folks in other countries about foreign policy. Obama did it as he should do it. Flynn did what he should do, and he diffused what really was a hot mess.
Flynn's calls were intercepted by the U.S. intelligence community. Secret transcripts show Flynn did discuss the sanctions, a potential violation of federal law prohibiting private citizens from engaging in diplomacy.
From the very beginning, this conversation that General Flynn had with the Russian ambassador was about a UN resolution that was coming up. And if you read the transcript, General Flynn had a perfect phone call. He was advocating for the United States. It's exactly what you'd want someone to say. Let's de-escalate this. Let's not try to make it worse than what it is.
Flynn had been in the intelligence world. Therefore, he knew that every single phone call on an open civilian phone is intercepted. Therefore, nobody could suspect that he was somehow plotting, because he wouldn't use the phone, would you? But he didn't realize how determined they were. They pretended not to know what everybody in the field knows, that when you telephone the Russian ambassador, you're not meeting him in a park at night. You telephone him, you are basically telling the U.S. system, the intelligence people, what you want them to hear, what you say.
Rather than say, okay, there's a new president and let's just hand the files over and do a peaceful transition, they really wanted to mess with the incoming president at a time when he was the most vulnerable, which was right after the election and his team was preparing. And so this culminated with attacks on General Flynn, when General Flynn was doing exactly what Susan Rice and Samantha Power admitted in House testimony that they were doing in their transition. If you read the transcript, Susan Rice admits this is what she did. Of course she had a transition period. Of course they talked to other countries. If you weren't talking to other countries, you weren't doing your job. You were preparing to take over the national security apparatus of the greatest country in the world.
Tensions get unnecessarily high with a nuclear-armed superpower. You don't necessarily know where things are going to go. So it's probably for the best to try to keep things on a low boil.
In 2015, Putin had said some complimentary things about then-candidate Donald Trump.
After Vladimir Putin praised Donald Trump as, quote, undoubtedly a bright and talented person.
When people call you brilliant, it's always good, especially when the person heads up Russia.
Candidate Donald Trump responded with saying nice things about him. He has a total, absolute understanding of who Putin is. He knows he's a killer. He knows he's an amoral man. He's somebody we have to deal with.
They had the picture of Donald Trump, and in that picture, they refused to admit that part of Donald Trump could be geopolitical. Therefore, they have to have sinister explanations, like he's Putin's agent. He was bribed, he was corrupted, he was blackmailed, or whatever. And that is how the FBI people were going to get him.
James Comey and his band of thugs at the FBI, under his leadership, McCabe, Strzok, Page. Comey bragged of this.
Oh, I pulled that off. I basically played a trick and got away with it. If it had been a more experienced administration, I wouldn't have gotten away with it. And the audience was, isn't it, how funny to set up an innocent man.
James Comey knew the protocol from the FBI was to call over the White House counsel and request a meeting with the National Security Advisor or any other senior staff. Mike Flynn sat down with those two FBI agents. They're then supposed to write what are called 302s.
A 302 is an FBI report of an interview.
The NRA.
God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit.
Coverage of Donald J. Trump live at NRA is sponsored by Preserve Gold. Text NRA to 50505 to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Randy. It's a true honor to be here today to receive the endorsement of the proud American patriots at the NRA. These are great patriots. These are great people, and we're going to do things like nobody can believe. We're going to win this election at levels that nobody's ever seen before. But thank you very much for that endorsement. It means a lot to me. You know, when I started off, as you know, in 2016, I got that endorsement early, and I got it. Some people thought they had it made, but we got it. We got it again, and we've lived up to everything, as you know, everything I said. They just were under siege with the guns, the rifles, and everything else. We're under siege, but they didn't move us an inch, and we have to stand strong. You know that. We have to stand very strong. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. The NRA has stood with me from the very beginning, and with your vote, I will stand strong for your rights and liberties. And 4 more years in the White House, we're going to do things like nobody can believe. We're going to turn our country around. We're going to, quite simply, make America great again. But one thing I'll say, and I say it as friends, we've got to get gun owners to vote. Because you know what? I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's a form of rebellion, because you're rebellious people, aren't you? But gun owners don't vote. What is that all about? I've heard that. I heard it a few weeks ago. If the gun owners voted, we would swamp them at levels that nobody's ever seen before. So I think you're a rebellious bunch. But let's be rebellious and vote this time, okay? If you go out and vote, I understand exactly why you don't, but we have to win this election. It's the most important election in the history of our country. You've got to get all your friends, all the gun owners. They have to go and they have to vote. If they vote, there's nobody that can beat us, nobody. So it's very important. And I want to thank the NRA President, Charles Cotton, your first Vice President, Bob Barr, and interim Executive Vice President, Andrew Arula-Andom, who's a terrific group of people. That's a terrific group of people. We're also grateful to be joined by a very special man. He's a hot politician, very hot. Governor Greg Abbott. Where is he? He's around here someplace. He's around here. Thank you, Greg. You're a hot politician, Greg. You know why he's hot? Because he's doing a good job. That's a good reason, right? Right, Doc Ronnie? Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate it. Great job. Also, a friend of mine is the chairman of our campaign in Texas, and we're 2-0, and we have lots of people running. And so far, I think we're 51-0 in Texas. I don't know. I like Texas, and they like me. Somehow it works together. But this man is very, very strong, very popular, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Thank you, Dan. Very strong guy, very popular guy. Thank you very much. Great job. How are we doing, Dan? Are we doing okay? We're way up in Texas. We're way up. Thank you very much. And members of Congress here, we have a lot of them, but a few of them I'm going to introduce. We also have senators, and we're going to just introduce a small group because we have to get on about our business, don't we? Huh? Members of Congress. The only man to hit a ball in Washington out of the stadium, he hit a home run, slow pitch. You know, they play the Democrats, and slow pitch meaning about 55 or 60 miles an hour, not that slow, but nobody's ever hit a home run over the fences except this one man, and he was wearing a MAGA hat. So I didn't know him at the time, but I said, who's the guy that hit the home run? This was a couple of years ago. He hit it right over the fences in the deepest part of the park. And that's not an easy thing to do for a civilian. You know, if you're a baseball player, you can do it. If you're a civilian, you're not supposed to be able to do it. But he was wearing that beautiful red MAGA hat. And I said, who is that guy? And his name's Greg Stubbe. And he's here today. And he's my friend with his incredible wife. Thank you. Greg Stubbe. Where are you, Greg? Where's Greg? What a shot that was. When they wear a hat that says MAGA, that means they're with us all the way. They're with us. Thank you, Greg. Also, a terrific congressman and a friend of yours, very good friend of you and the state and the country, Pat Fallon. Pat. Thank you, Pat. Great, Pat. Great job. Another man, he was the doctor for, I don't think any of you have ever heard of this gentleman, Barack Hussein Obama. Has anyone ever heard of Barack Hussein? No, he was the doctor, very talented doctor, too. You know, he's got a lot of things on his resume. He was a great doctor. He was a great admiral. And now he's a great congressman. And before I introduce him, I just want to say, when he was the doctor at the White House, they asked him, who's healthier? Who's a better physical specimen? Is it Trump? Or is it Obama? And he said, it's not even close. It's Donald Trump, not even close. I said, I love this guy. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, your congressman, great congressman from Texas. Then he had to louse it up. You know what he did? He said, and he'd live for 200 years, except he likes junk food, so he might only live to 110. Can you believe? I do like junk food. Who doesn't? A real good friend of mine, an incredible Republican, conservative, really a person that loves our country more than anything else, happens to solidly reside in the state of Texas, the president of the America First Policy Institute. What she's done is incredible. She has taken the Policy Institute and brought it to a level that nobody thought possible, and fairly quickly, too, I would say. Brooke Rollins. Brooke? Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. She could run any company in America, but I don't want to say that because I don't want her stolen away from me. Texas legislature candidates who have my complete and total endorsement: David Covey, Alan Schoolcraft, where is Alan? Alan Schoolcraft, Helen Kerwin, and Brent Hagenboo. Where are you? Stand up. Oh, there they are. And David is leading very substantially an absolutely terrible Speaker of the House who didn't want to go into voter fraud. He didn't want to do it. And David, raise your hand, David, because David's leading very, very substantially against your Speaker of the House. And I see the recent polls, but still, it's about a week away. They all have my complete and total endorsement. They're phenomenal people, and they're going to do really, really well. And we appreciate you being with us. Thank you. And good luck in a week from now. Good luck. You're going to win big. You're all going to win big. We have to get your Speaker out of there so that we can go into voter fraud. Because, you know, even though we win Texas, Dallas and Houston, those areas, a lot of bad things happening, right, Dan? You know, they have a lot of bad things happening, and we got to stop it before it gets out of control, and they will do that. Also, a man, you know, he was operating a piece of equipment, a big hauler, a big truck. He was a truck guy, a real truck guy, not like Biden. You know, Biden says, I drive trucks. I drive trucks. I used to drive an 18-wheeler. He doesn't know what he said. He didn't. No, he always says that. He said, I used to drive an 18-wheeler. When the truckers come in, that's what he says. When the pilots come in, I used to fly a plane. No, it's true. He's misinformation. I was going to say he's full of bullshit, but I don't want to use bad language because there are a lot of young... No, I don't want to... I don't want to do that. Well, I played golf today with a really good golfer, Tony Romo. Do you know Tony Romo? He may be a better golfer than a football player. I don't know. But we played really today. We were talking about the state. We were talking about a lot of things, and we were at a wonderful course very nearby, and we had a tremendous amount of support from the people at that club. I'll tell you, it's amazing. They love this state. They love your governor, your lieutenant governor. They love this country. It's a beautiful thing to see, really beautiful. But, you know, Biden, he said his biggest lie of all, because I'm a nice golfer, is the expression goes. We have another nice golfer here, by the way, Mr. Steve Witkoff and his son Alex. He's a nice golfer, and he's one of the most successful businessmen in the country. He flew in just to spend some time because he's a big believer in the NRA. But Biden, his biggest lie of all, he said he's a 6.2 handicap golfer. This guy couldn't break 200. I really mean it. And he actually challenged me, you know. Last week we're going to have debates with him, and that was good. That's good. I think we're going to, you know, he's still looking for that white stuff that was found in the White House. He's saying, where is it? It never arrived. It never arrived. They can't find it. Everyone thought it was for Hunter. Maybe it wasn't for Hunter. I think it was for somebody else. But he said 6.2, you know, so usually a guy's a 6 or 7 or an 8. I played golf for a long time. I won a lot of golf. 31 club championships, can you believe it? And he challenged me to a golf match. He said, I'll give him 3 aside. The guy can't break 200. Here's his swing. I'm very good at imitating swings. It's not just well, you ask Tony Romo about that. He'll tell you about Trump. But no, but that's his biggest lie. 6.2. He's got to be 6.2. You know why? 6.2 is like totally accurate. You know, down 0.2. I never even heard of that before. Who's a 6.2? But this gentleman that is from North Carolina got up and made a speech, and the place said, why aren't you running for office? And he gave it a shot. He ran for lieutenant governor. So he went from a tractor. He was a very good operator right here. It was a forklift, and a good one, a big one, and he had a great job. But he made a speech. I think he was protesting taxes or something in North Carolina, and he took the place by storm. One of the most beautiful, resonant voices you've ever heard. He stood up. I said, I think I'm going to really insult him by saying this. It's possible that I will, and I didn't want to do that. And you know, we're doing well with the black voter. They can't even believe it. They love Trump, and I love them. But I said to this man, and when he endorsed me, he gave a speech, and I said, you are Dr. Martin Luther King on steroids. That's how good you are. You are unbelievable as a speaker. And he got up, and he's doing fantastically well in North Carolina, and I think he's going to be the next governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson. And a very popular guy. How's it going? Good? The polls are looking good, I hear, yes? You got to hear this guy speak. Anyway, he's going to be speaking at the convention very loudly and beautifully, and we look forward to that. We're going to have a great convention in Milwaukee, and we're not doing one, you know, they're going to do a Zoom convention, I hear, because, you know, they're blaming the pickets, the riots, whatever they might want to blame. The real problem is he doesn't want to get up and speak. He doesn't want to walk. He can't walk from that stair to this podium. He can't put two sentences together. Even his challenge on the debate, it took him 7 shots. They have 7 different clips. For more than 150 years, the NRA has been defined by men and women like all of you, loyal, hardworking citizens who believe in defending your families and your communities and our country. RFK Jr., I call him Junior. By the way, he's radical left. Don't think about it. Don't waste your vote. We need a conservative person with common sense. This guy is radical left who destroyed New York. They're taking down all of the energy components. We have the highest, and all of New England, actually. He's a disaster. He's radical left. RFK Jr. is radical left. It reminds me of this fly that's driving me crazy up here. This fly is brutal. I don't like flies. But RFK Jr. calls you a terrorist group. You know, he calls you a terrorist group. Can't vote for him. You can't, you know. Somebody said, well, they like his policy on vaccine. The other day, he said, no, he'll go for the vaccine. He's got no policy on anything. He's radical left. He always has been. His family is angry at him because he's doing this. They won't talk to him because they said, where the hell did this come from? And for some reason, he's getting probably a little bit more, hurting Biden a little bit more, but we can't waste any votes. We have to make sure we win. And I'm meeting, I don't know if you read, but I'm meeting next week, very soon, with the Libertarians, because largely they have so much of what we have. You know, they're also people of common sense, generally speaking. They have a couple of things that are a little different. But we have to join with them because they get their 3% every year, no matter who's running. And we have to get that 3% because we can't take a chance on Joe Biden winning. He's the worst president in the history of our country by far. We can't have it. But RFK Jr. says bad things. He calls you a terrorist group, and I call you the backbone of America. That's a big difference, wouldn't you say? But under crooked Joe Biden, everything you stand for is under threat like never before. Our Second Amendment, which is largely why you're here, I mean, that's the biggest statement for you. You know, when I go and make speeches at different places, it's always important. But today, this is the big statement. It's under siege. Second Amendment is under siege. Our Constitution is being run through the shredder. Our borders have been obliterated. Inflation continued to rage, and it's raging right now again. And they shouldn't lower the interest rates because they're going to have to stop it. But he's going to lower it just for purposes of trying to win an election, just like he went into the strategic reserves to try and win an election and let this stuff that's supposed to be used for war and national emergencies to try and keep the gas prices down. And now we have the lowest strategic reserves we've ever had. Our country is going to hell. Rapacious gangs and ruthless criminals are terrorizing our streets, and crooked Joe Biden's weakness has us teetering on the edge of World War III. You know, I've gotten to know the leaders of the world very well. The ones in South America that are sending all of their criminals and their prisoners and their gangs into our country intelligently. I'd do the same thing if I was there. I would do the same. I'd do it faster than them. But they're sending everybody into our country. I mean, think of it. We have these people coming into our country. We don't want them in our country. They're from prison. They're gang members. They're drug dealers. They're rapists. We have people coming into our country. No country can sustain what's happening to us, and they don't check them. They have no idea who they are. It's not just South America. It's all over the world. It's time for a president who will replace weakness with strength, turn poverty to prosperity, and vanquish Joe Biden's corrupt tyranny with a great restoration of American freedom. We have to do that. From the very first day that we take back the White House, I believe we are going to have the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. And it's hard to believe when you look at what's happening right now with the inflation and the bad economy. And one of the greatest, I'll just say Scott, I call him Scott. He's one of the great prognosticators on Wall Street, one of the smartest people on Wall Street. He said the only reason the stock market's doing well is because Trump is leading in all of the polls. If Trump wasn't leading in all of the polls, and if Trump doesn't win, you're going to have a collapse like in 1929. So just remember, he said it, but I said it too. I really believe it. I believe it. That's the only thing that's doing well is the stock market. It's doing well because we're doing well. We had a great stock market. But if it didn't happen, it's going to be a very bad time, I think, for our country. But to achieve the future, you have to march into the voting booth and you have to tell crooked Joe Biden, Joe, you're doing a horrible job. You're a horrible president. Like The Apprentice, Joe, you're fired. Get out of here, Joe. You're fired. And let there be no doubt, the survival of our Second Amendment is very much on the ballot. You know what they want to do. They're going to, if they get in, our country is going to be destroyed in so many ways, but the Second Amendment will be, it's under siege. But with me, they never get anywhere, and we need that Second Amendment for safety, forgetting about even going hunting and all of the things that you do. We need it for safety. Because, you know, the bad guys are not giving up their guns. You know that. The bad ones are not giving up their guns. Oh, they will be so happy. If the Biden regime gets 4 more years, they are coming for your guns, 100% certain. Crooked Joe has a 40-year record of trying to rip firearms out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. He's always wanted to do that. And you can't do it. You know, we're the party of common sense now. It's like I call it the party of common sense. We're conservative and all of that. But we want borders. We want good elections. We have to have a Second Amendment that's meaningful. If we don't, we're going to have levels of death and destruction like this country has never seen before. We're the party of common sense. As we speak, the Biden administration is trying to crush independent firearms dealers by revoking their licenses if they make a single error, even in very unimportant paperwork. You know that. Are there any people in here that have that happen? Because 5 hands go up. It's sad. No, they want to take away your rights. Well, I know that better than anybody. They want to take away my rights better than anybody. Worse than Alphonse Capone. Al Capone was indicted twice. I got indicted 4 times. I never heard the word. What's an indictment? What's an indictment, please? Think of it, I go years and years, I go through all sorts of stuff in New York. I built buildings with the unions, with all the people that are involved. It's a rough business. I never had a question about me. All of a sudden, within a period of like this little tiny period, I got indicted 4 times, and on a civil basis 4 or 5 times, with it all being run from the White House and the DOJ. And I say, Alphonse Capone, the meanest, roughest, most horrendous. I'm looking at some of the people here, like this gentleman, rough guy. Rough guy, he's a rough stand-up. But you know what? You don't want to have dinner with Al Capone, I can tell you that, right? He wouldn't like you. You look too good. He wouldn't like you. He'd say, let's get rid of that guy. Al Capone, remember Scarface, right? Scarface. He is a scar that went from here to here. And he was rough. But he got indicted less than I did. Think of this. My father is up in heaven, and my mother. And my father was tough, but he was a good man. He was a good person, so I know he's in heaven. My mother, I guarantee it. My father, I think. Okay. I think. I'm pretty sure. But he was great. He was a great guy. And they're looking down on me right now. They say, can you believe it, darling? My son, he got indicted so much. And I heard they were going to try and do it a couple of more times, and the White House said, don't do it, don't do it. You're indicting this guy into the White House. There's a little truth to that. There's a little truth. But we have the highest poll numbers we've ever had. We have the highest poll numbers we've ever had. And, you know, there are those, I don't want to ever say this, you know, being, I don't know if this is wood or plastic. You can't tell nowadays. I think it's plastic. Is there any wood around? Oh, there's a piece. But we have the best poll numbers we've ever had. And I think a lot of it is the weaponization of justice, or as I call it, the weaponization of injustice, because that's what it is. And they'll use that on these great congressmen that I just introduced, because I have a platform that's a very big platform, and I can tell and talk to the voters, whether it's on television or I can do whatever, I can get it out, and I have done it, and probably a pretty good job. You see this case that's in New York, this fake case with a highly conflicted judge, so conflicted, there's probably no judge maybe in history that's been as conflicted as this guy, and he refuses to recuse himself. But I'm able to talk about things, although I do have a gag order. I can't talk about the things I want to talk about, because what I talk about is just on the surface. Because if I go in, they want to put me in jail. Can you believe they want to put me in jail if I say the truth? So I can't talk about certain things. It says you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, you can't talk, but those are the best things. But we talk about the things I can talk about. It has to be unconstitutional. Can you imagine? You've won the Republican nomination for President of the United States, and you have a local judge appointed by Democrat politicians. He was appointed. He didn't win the election. He's appointed. And he says, I'm going to put a gag order on the Republican Party's presidential candidate. Think of that. I'm going to put a gag order. So when people ask me questions, I'll have to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. And they're easy questions. They're like softballs. They're so easy to answer. But I'm able to speak to the people, and the people understand, and we're well into the 80s and even more than that, and they see how fake it is. And so many of the politicians, like the ones I just mentioned, and others, many of them that aren't here from all over the country, they go to the trial and they watch what's going on. But we had a big day on Friday, didn't we? Didn't we have a big day? But they want to rig that just like they rigged the presidential election of 2020. They want to rig it. This is their form of rigging, and it only happens in third world countries. Never happened here. It's a disgrace what's going on. But with me in the White House, the radical gun grabbers will run straight into a very, very powerful brick wall. Their dreams of taking away your God-given rights will die when the polls close on November 5th, 2024. Those dreams that they have will be dead. They will be dead dreams. Every promise I made, every single promise I made to you as a candidate, I kept as your president. Look at all the things we did. Taxes, think of it. Biggest tax cut in history, biggest regulation cuts in history, greatest economy in the history of our country. Larry Kudlow was on last night. He was on, I think, Sean Hannity, another great guy. A lot of good people out there. We have a lot of great people that get the word out. But Larry Kudlow was out, and he was comparing our economy to Biden's economy. He says, not even close. I mean, we had the greatest economy ever, and he's got an economy that is so bad with inflation, no matter what happened, you can never override. Inflation is a country buster. It has been for hundreds of years. You go back to Germany of old, it's a country buster, and it's busting our country, and it's destroying our people. Just as I pledged back in 2016, I appointed nearly 300 pro-Constitution judges to interpret the law as written. It's a record, by the way. And I faced down vile attacks from the radical left who confirmed 3 great Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. They're great. Oh, they were thrilled when I got 3. You know, a lot of presidents get none because they stay in office. They're usually appointed at a young age. It's interesting. I have a friend in New York. He wanted to be a judge so bad. And when he, great lawyer, actually, when I won, he called me. He said, wow, do you believe it? A big real estate lawyer, phenomenal talent, and 69 years old. He said, unbelievable how you did this. Can I be honest? I'd love to give up my practice. He makes a lot of money. I'd like to give up my practice. And I'd like to run. I'd like to be a judge. I'd be a great judge, and he would be a great judge. And I called my people, and I told him, don't worry about it. You're going to be a judge. Congratulations. Then I called up my people, and I said, I have a guy from New York who's an incredible lawyer. He's got the right temperament. He'd be a really great judge. Oh, good, sir. How old is he? I said, he's 69, sir. So he's going to be there for 2, 3, 4 years. We like people in their 30s, so they're there for 50 years or 40 years. We don't want, and as soon as they said that, I realized, yeah, they're exactly right. So I called up my friend. I said, you're phenomenal. We love you, love you, love you. But will you guarantee that you're going to be there for 25 years? Well, I can't do that. Good. Then I can't appoint you. It's sort of a shame, actually. He would have been great. But, you know, after 3, 4 years, I say, I think I want to move to Texas, and I want to retire in Texas. A lot of people are moving to Texas. Standing before you at the NRA Leadership Forum in 2019, I revoked America's signature from the globalist United Nations Armed Trade Treaty, which was one of the worst things to happen. But we revoked it. I stood up for our hunters, fishers, and sportsmen like never before. No president has ever stood up for you, the people in this room, like I did, opening up millions of acres of federal land and rolling back Barack Hussein Obama's assault on hunting, fishing, and trapping. It was an assault. He didn't want you to hunt. Why? I don't know. They usually blame the environment. It's the environment. And I stopped cold their efforts to take away your ammunition. You know, those efforts are big. The ammunition, has anyone noticed? They're going after the ammunition. When the radical left Democrats tried to use COVID to shut down gun sales during the China virus, I proudly designated gun and ammunition retailers as critical infrastructure so they couldn't touch it. They tried. Many of the gun dealers are in this room. They came up to me backstage, a couple of them I met. I said, I was so honored to be called critical. I was critical. He was critical. I've never been called critical in my life. You gave me this powerful designation. But we did that, and it really worked. Word critical was very important, because that's what it is. We have to save our country. My administration also petitioned the Supreme Court to overturn New York City's unconstitutional ban on transporting handguns outside the home. They say you can't do it, and we overturned it. And in a landmark case 2 years ago, the court affirmed that the right to self-defense does not end when you step outside the front door of your house. We won it. In my second term, we will roll back every Biden attack on the Second Amendment. The attacks are fast and furious, starting the minute that Crooked Joe shuffles his way out of the White House. At noon on Inauguration Day, we will sack the anti-gun fanatic Steve Dettelbach. Have you ever heard of him? He's a disaster. And replace him with an ATF director who respects the sacred rights to keep and bear arms. And remember, every single thing I told you, I did. That's one of the big things, is that when I first ran, we ran, and when I first ran, nobody, you know, I did great in business and did a lot of success, even in show business with The Apprentice and all, but, you know, I never did this before. And I said I was going to do certain things. Every single thing, virtually every single thing that I said we're going to give you the biggest tax cuts. I said we're going to give you the biggest regulation cuts. I said we're going to give you Space Force. We're going to rebuild our military, which we did. I said we were going to build hundreds of miles of wall, which we did. We had 200 miles of wall ready to go. And they decided, then we had the rigged election, and they decided not to put them up, and they sold that very expensive wall. It's exactly what the Border Patrol wanted. Exactly. I wanted nice, beautiful 40, 50-foot concrete plank. They didn't like that, and I did everything they wanted. even the repellent panel on the top, it stops you. It's called an anti-climb panel. You can't climb over it. We had people that climbed Mount Everest. We had all different walls built so that we got the best one. They couldn't climb this one. And I didn't like the panel on top. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's an anti-climb panel on top, but it makes it very hard for people to get over the walls. They could scoot up those walls. It was incredible. And we built everything, and now you know what they did? We had 200 miles that would have been put up. We built 571 miles of wall, and we had the safest border in history. I got Mexico to give us soldiers, all of the things I did. But these people, they took the 200 miles of wall that could have been flipped up and thrown up, and they were sitting there ready to be installed, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. I don't even know what the hell does anybody want that wall for, right? Maybe other countries are buying it to use for their wall, probably. That's it, for 5 cents on the dollar. On day one, we will seal the border. We will stop the invasion, and we will send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home right where they belong. Right where they belong. They're going back home where they belong. And we start with the criminals, and there are many, many criminals. Less than 4 years ago, we had the most secure border in U.S. history. We ended catch and release, built tremendous numbers of miles of border wall like nobody thought possible. I took it out of the military because I considered it an invasion of our country. And I got Mexico to send 28,000 soldiers to our border free of charge. Do you think that was easy to do? I told the president of Mexico, I need 28,000 soldiers free of charge to guard our border. Oh, Donald, oh, President. He was laughing. He thought I was kidding. I said, no, they have to be free of charge. You'll do it. I know you'll do it. There's no question that you're going to do it. They come through Mexico along with the drugs, which, by the way, are now 10 times greater coming through fentanyl and all, coming through our border than it was just 4 years ago. 10 times greater. It's even more than that, I believe, but they're estimating at least 10 times. But I said, I need your soldiers, and you'll give them to us free of charge. He said, no, 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 I will not do that, Donald. He thought it was so funny. I said, do me a favor. And he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a radical socialist, and that's fine. I don't care. I don't care. But he was a good guy. I said, do me a favor. Look, I don't like negotiating with you. It's sort of unpleasant. I want to negotiate with you people. And I said, so do you have somebody that can negotiate a little bit on this subject and others? And he said, yes, I will send Jose, whoever, to see you. And a few days later, a man comes into Washington. He had the most beautiful clothing I've ever seen. I'm telling you, he was wearing suits. In fact, other than it probably would sound bad for the negotiation, I wanted to ask him, who is your tailor? But I didn't think that was a good way to start off the negotiation. And I said to him, I want to do this. I went to the Border Patrol and ICE, who are phenomenal people. And I went to everybody who has anything to do with the border and our country and safety and immigration. I said, give me a top 10 list. I want everything. I want everything. I'll get it all. Sir, you won't get any of this stuff. We've been trying to get it for 30 years from Mexico. I said, that's okay, 100% I'll get it. Anyway, they gave us stay in Mexico policy. In other words, people have to stay in Mexico. They don't come into our country, they stay in Mexico. And they gave us catch and release into Mexico, not catch and release into our country. They gave us many things, various illness situations where people that are ill with contagious diseases, right, Doc Ronnie? They pour into our country like it's like, let's just accept everybody and let's spread illness all over our country. So we had that taken care of. We had everything. We had 10. So the guy comes in from Mexico, and I say, here's what I want. I want 28,000 soldiers free of charge. I want remain in Mexico. I want catch and release into Mexico. They never heard of this. And he's like, he's going, President, we won't do that. Why would we do this? Are we stupid? Why would we do this? I said, you're going to do it 100%. Why, you don't think you're going to do it? Of course you're going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I said, yes, you are going to do it 100%. He goes, no way. I said, way. I said, way, you're going to do it. And now he's not laughing at me because he's trying to figure, what the hell's going on with this guy? He's saying no, and I'm saying yes. I said, no, 100% you're going to do it. He said, no, I'm not. And I said, here's what's happening. It's Friday evening. On Monday morning at 7 o'clock, Every single car that you send into our country, you know, they've stolen 32% of our car industry over the years, not during my administration, by the way. But over the years, they've taken a huge chunk out of Michigan. And by the way, that's why I'm leading in Michigan, because people see what they've done to the jobs and the cars and the building, the manufacturing of cars is just horrible. And Mexico has taken a tremendous amount of that business away. I mean, they're building massive car plants again in Mexico. I had it stopped. Some of the biggest plants in the world. You know who's building a lot of them? China is building car plants in Mexico to sell cars into the United States. And I told them the other day, don't do it because you're going to be charged 100% tariff, which makes it impossible to sell the cars into, and you're building these big monster plants, and you're wasting a lot of money doing it because we're not going to accept any of those cars. We're not going to lose our jobs to monster plants that are being built along the border to sell into the United States because they have a guy like Crooked Joe Biden as president who's accepted money. He's a Manchurian candidate. He's accepted money from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, from everywhere. If that were a Republican, he would have been given the electric chair. They would have brought back the death penalty. What he's gotten away he's the most crooked. He's also the most crooked president we've ever had. And to spin it a little bit, he is a threat to democracy. You know, they like to say, I'm a threat to democracy. What the hell have I done? All I've done is we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS, and we defeated them brutally and quickly. And I said to this handsome, beautiful, well-dressed man, no, you're going to do that because on Monday morning we're putting a tariff of 25% on everything that comes in, and then a month later it's going to 50, and then a month later it goes to 75, and then a month later it goes to 100, and that's where I'm going to stop. I think that's enough. And that's more money than the money we're asking for, the 28,000 soldiers and the other things, by a factor of about 5. And it's going to take place on Monday morning. And I had an order on my desk. And I said, I'm signing the order right now so you can see it. Oh, but Mr. President, may I please take 5 minutes to make a call back to my country? And I said, let me guess, you're going to call the president, my friend, who is my friend. He's a great guy, but he likes Mexico and I like us. I mean, what can I tell you, right? That's the deal. Just like President Xi, he likes China and I like the USA. That's why they paid billions of dollars that no other president got 10 cents. So may I take a moment to make a call? Yes, you may. Please hurry up because I have other appointments. He comes back about 3 minutes later. We have decided to provide you, sir, with 28,000 soldiers free of charge, of course. And it is our great honor to do so. And in addition to that, we will have a stay in Mexico policy where all of these criminals that are coming into our country will stay in Tijuana. You had to see Tijuana. This was breathtaking to see this. They weren't allowed into our country. We've got everything. And the woman from the State Department, a very nice woman, very, very good, very loyal to the country, but a lousy negotiator. She said, I've been working on this for 25 years. I said, I've been working on it for about 2 hours and I got everything. I got everything. And then when this guy with no IQ, he's a low IQ individual, our president. Think of this. We have a low IQ individual as our president, and he's dealing with steel. He's dealing with President Xi. We will start negotiation now. There's no games. He's dealing with Putin. He's dealing with Kim Jong-un. He's dealing with Macron of France. That's another one. He charged our companies 25% tax. I said to Mnuchin and the other people, go and tell them we're not going to have our companies pay 25% tax to France. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? I said, you have a week. You get them to withdraw that tax immediately. And they came back and they said, it doesn't work. I said, you have another day and then I'll make a call. And they came back and they said, we can't do it. They've already passed it. I said, that's okay, let me go. Get me Emmanuel Macron of France. Please get me. You don't mind if I go off the cuff for these stupid teleprompters, do you? Isn't it nice to have a president that doesn't need a frickin' teleprompter? Isn't that nice? Isn't that a nice thing? So I said, let me handle it. So they're going to charge American companies this massive amount of tax to do business in France. Who the hell wants to do business in France? Why should they do that? So they couldn't do it. They came and said, sir, I'm sorry, sir, it's too late. I said, it's not too late. It's never too late. They're ripping off our country, and it's an embarrassment to our country. It's not too late. I said, get me Macron to France right away. I want right away. And Emmanuel Macron, he's the leader of France, and he's a nice man, but he loves France. They all love their countries or feel an obligation to their country. But they love their country. But I love this country more than I love just about anything, right? I mean, I love my family, too. You know, I always have to preface that because the fake news back there would say, he doesn't love his family. So I always have to preface it. I love my family so much, and I love my country so much. I love things, but I love our country, and I feel an obligation. So I say, I'll do it. Get me Macron. So Macron, leader of France, gets on the phone. Emmanuel, how are you? His name is Emmanuel. Beautiful, beautiful name, especially when it's spoken in French. Emmanuel. Emmanuel, how are you? Oh, Donald, I am so good. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for asking. How's your wife? His wife is lovely, by the way. And I say, how's your wife? My wife is so good. Thank you so much for asking. I said, Emmanuel, I understand that you are going to charge American companies 25% for the privilege of doing business in France. Oh, yes, oh, yes. This was passed by our legislature. Oh, yes, we are doing that. Well, it's not going to happen, Emmanuel. No, Donald, it is happening. No, it's not going to happen, Emmanuel. You're going to withdraw it immediately. I don't care if it's signed or not. It's irrelevant. No, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. This is taking place. We have talked about this for a long time within France. I said, that's good. I talked about this for a long time in my country, too, about 3 hours. And I said, Emmanuel, here's a story. If you don't withdraw that tax immediately, on Wednesday morning, this was a Monday, I work all different days, I don't discriminate. This was a Monday. I said, Emmanuel, if you don't withdraw that tax, I'm going to charge you a 100% tariff on all wine and champagne that comes into the United States, and it will start effective immediately. And he said, no, Donald, you cannot do that. That would be very unfair. I said, no, charging a tax to our company is very unfair. I said, you have 5 minutes to tell me you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. I will call you back, Donald. I must check. He calls me back. Donald, I have been able to stop this legislation. And I'm pleased to inform you that we will not be charging you that tax. But now I understand they're charging or they're doing something very similar. And a lot of it's already been passed again because they have a president that's incompetent. And you know what? I have great respect for the office of the president. I would never talk this way. I didn't talk like this until I got indicted. Once they indicted me, I said, the gloves are off. This guy did something that you can't do. Even Hillary Clinton, we didn't want to do that. You don't want to hurt our country like that and divide our country. This guy, this horrible guy, indicted a man that's running for office on the two-party system. Always going to be a two-party system, by the way. They can have all the games they want, but we have a two-party system. It was devised that way. That's good. That's fine. But they took the leading candidate who has the Republican, essentially has the Republican nomination, and very importantly, is leading their candidate by a lot. We're leading in every poll, every single poll, leading in the swing states, everything. And they've indicted him, so they did this in order to hurt his political opponent. This is a political thing. The indictments are nonsense, and you see that when you watch the television and the news reports, even though fake news CNN and fake tech, do you know fake Tapper is going to be one of the people? But they said to me the other day, sir, CNN with fake Tap, and he is a fake, but let's see how he does. I think he's under a lot of pressure, to be fair. But fake Tapper is going to be heading up the team that interrogates you. I said, that's okay. I accept the debate. I accept it. You know why? Because nobody thought he was going to debate. They didn't think I'd accept it. I accept. Then another one called. They put out another one. I said, I accept. They didn't even tell me where it was, who it was. I didn't care. What the hell difference does it make? I mean, you know. So we did something that they were shocked at. They had no idea that, you know, they figured, well, we're not going to do CNN, and we're not going to have Tapper be the guy. And we're not going to have other people involved in that show that, you know, they thought there was no negotiation. I said, I accept anything you want. Let's debate. And now they're shocked. They don't know what the hell to do because they have a debate. But just remember this. We'll go back and finish. You know, there is a genius to what I'm doing. You do know that. I go from here to there, and it all comes back into a beautiful picture. You know, it really, do you notice? It all comes back into a beautiful picture, great memory. It's a beautiful thing. But remember what they're going to do. If this horrible, low IQ individual who's representing us, if this horrible person who's done such a bad job, worst president in history by far, if this horrible individual finishes the debate, which I think he will, if he's standing, they'll say it was a brilliant performance. It was a brilliant performance. They've never seen anything like it. Very much reminiscent of the days of FDR. You know, FDR was had a beautiful patrician voice, magnificent voice, great debater, very smart man. You know, FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years. He was 4-term. I don't know. Are we going to be considered 3-term or 2-term? You tell me. Ronnie, what do you think? Are we 3-term or 2-term if we win? But think of it. They're going to say, wonderful. Now, he did that State of the Union the other day. He was high as a kite. So I think we should call for drug tests on the debate. Yeah? We're going to call for drug tests. We're going to call for drug tests. So anyway, so Macron calls. See what I mean? Look, I started. Even I say to myself, you're a frickin' genius. Hey, look, I had an uncle, my father's brother, who's the longest-serving president. He's the longest-serving professor in the history of MIT. He graduated. He was a phenomenal student, a real genius, really brilliant guy. And, you know, I believe in the racehorse theory. Fast horses produce fast horses. He went to MIT, graduated. They said, we'd love to have you be a professor. He was there for, I think, 41 years. He's the longest-serving professor in the history of MIT. It's nice to know. Do you think Biden has that in his family? I don't think so. I don't think so. I may be wrong. Let's check. Let's check. So Macron calls me back. See, this is the final of the stories. Macron calls me back, and he said, Donald, we have agreed to do what you want. We will not charge the tax. How sad is that? There are so many different things, like buying Air Force One, saying I'm not going to pay for it, and not signing the contract. I said, who negotiated the contract? Barack Hussein Obama. Then I'm not signing it. Well, why would you do that? Because I know it's too expensive. I didn't know anything about the plane. It's too expensive. And I was able to cut $1.6 billion off the price over a period of 2 months with Boeing. We have a lot of stories we could tell. But the saddest thing of all is that crooked Joe Biden has turned your state and the entire country into a dumping ground for the world. In Venezuela, violent crime is down at levels that they've never seen before. It was 67% 3 weeks ago. It's now down to 72%. It's down. Violent crime is down. Where'd you ever hear that? You know, if it goes down 1%, we say, oh, it's so great. Down 72% because all of their inmates, their mental patients, and the dreck from deep in the basements of their most vile prisons, and they're depositing them all into our country. All their gang members in Caracas, Venezuela. Caracas, wonderful city if you'd like to. Actually, it's going to turn out to be a lot safer than our cities because all the criminals are being sent to us. In fact, I'll invite you. In fact, I have an idea for the NRA. Let's have the next year's meeting in Venezuela where it's going to be a lot safer than our country. Venezuela will have no crime because all of their criminals will be deposited, so Ronnie will go together. Okay, Congressman Fallon, we're going to go together. We'll all take a trip together, and we're going to go, and we're going to get Dan and the whole group, and we're going to go to Venezuela because we want a crime-free environment, okay? That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Think of it. They're down 72% now from last year in violent crime. Biden wants to disarm American citizens while he floods our country with Biden migrant crime. Now, while we're here, has anyone ever heard of the snake? The snake. Should I do it now or not? Should I? I mean, look, let's face it. It's a Saturday afternoon. We have nothing to do. It's like a time, it's sort of like a Death Valley time. You know, in television terms, they call it Death Valley. When you're on Saturday afternoon, they say you got Death Valley. So let's do this. It's better, right? Is this better than going home and turning on television and falling asleep, being bored? Do it? Yes, yes, yes. So this is sort of a metaphor, and it has to do with immigration, and it has to do with the people coming into our country that are wrong. You can't let criminals into our country and expect good things to happen. It's the snake. It was an old rock and roll song, not having anything to do with what we're talking about, and we made certain changes, and it's pretty good, and I think it describes it, and people like it, and they like it a lot, although they're very sad when they hear it because it's what's happening. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed that vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried, "but if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died." She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying, "Thank you, ma'am," the snake gave her a vicious bite. "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. "I saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bitten me. But why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in." Right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're allowing terrorists into our country. We're allowing prisoners and people from mental institutions and insane asylums into our country. And nothing good is going to happen. It's actually a very accurate portrayal of what we're waiting for. We're 100% going to be in big, big trouble. And they're building in numbers that you've never seen before. Even large numbers of Chinese warriors are flowing into our country. They're all aged from 19 to 25. And almost every one of them is a man. What's that all about? 29,000 over the last month and a half. 29,000 people from China, all men, strong as hell. I looked at them the other day on television. I looked at them, I said, wow, they're pretty strong. What are they doing, building a little army in our backyard? How stupid are these people? How stupid. You know, we're the party of common sense. And I say, and so important because common sense is the key. Not even conservative, we're very conservative, all that stuff. But we're really common sense. Who wants to have an open border where people can come in totally unchecked, unvetted? Who wants to have high interest rates, high taxes? Who wants to have men being able to play in women's sports? Who wants to have that? Who really wants to have that? Think of it. Who wants it? We're joined today by a very proud Texan, Debbie Douglas. You've read about Debbie. She's become as famous as me, I think. I'm not happy about this, Debbie. We got to put an end to this. No, Debbie's great, and her family ranch in Edwards County is under invasion from the cartels and the illegal aliens. Because of Joe Biden's open border, Debbie has been forced to install steel shutters, steel screens, and reinforced door frames all over her home, including on her 8-year-old granddaughter's bedroom window. She's petrified for the life of her granddaughter. After multiple attempted break-ins and attacks, including an attack when illegal border crossers tried to kick in the door and break through that window, Debbie's granddaughter is too afraid to do anything. She wants to go home. I want to go home, Grandma. I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay here. This place is so dangerous, Grandma. It's so scary. This whole area is a playground, Debbie says. They basically own it. And 4 years ago, it was safe, and nobody came around because that was Trump, and we had the safest border. We had the best border in the history of our country. But today, that beautiful little granddaughter wants to go anywhere but that bedroom and that house. But she said, I'm not going to fear it. I'm not going to let them run me out of here. Debbie is 45 minutes away from the nearest law enforcement. Without her Second Amendment, she's defenseless. She has no chance. That's why Debbie says we are never out of that house without a gun. We have to have a gun. If we don't have a gun, we're dead people. You can't even go out on the porch to have a cup of coffee without being assaulted with people that have weapons. Debbie, I promise you I will get the trespassers off your land, out of our country, and your granddaughter will look forward to going home with you and sleeping with you in that beautiful little bedroom. So I'd like to ask Debbie to come up and tell us quickly and beautifully about how she's doing. And I can only say you're coming up, you're going to be happy, Debbie, because we're going to solve your problem immediately once we get into office. Debbie, please come up. Thank you. Hi, Debbie.
Hi. My son, Scott Douglas, and I have owned a ranch in Edwards County for 12 years. And sorry to say that over the last 4, since we've had open borders, it's not safe. Used to, we could go out on the property, enjoy the sights. Now, when we drive around, one of us driving, the other one's looking under cedar bushes for legs and movement. We can't even go out on the property around the house without being armed. We can't go out and sit on the porch and drink a cup of coffee without having a gun on us. My granddaughter can't go out and play without having adult supervision, which she used to could. You know, something's got to be done. If we're out on the property, you're always looking over your shoulder to make sure an illegal isn't coming up on you. When you're approaching the gate, one person is sitting in the car with a gun while the other one is unlocking the gate. In my opinion, there's only one man that can change this. There's only one man that can protect our rights as gun owners. There's only one man that can save this country. And there's only one man that can close our borders, and that is President Trump.
Thank you. Whoa, wow. Great woman. Thank you, Debbie. You know, that's sometimes very dangerous to do. Please come up. And they say, and there's only one man, and and they say somebody else. I say, that was not good. That was not. But she's an incredible woman and a warrior and a fighter just like you guys, and she's really great, and I appreciate that. I met her son also, and he's fantastic. Real patriots. Joe Biden has heartlessly betrayed his solemn duty to Americans like Debbie, and he sided with the cartels. He's actually sided with these very tough, very smart, very vicious cartels. Crooked Joe does not care one bit about these stories like hers, but I do. I care a lot. Instead of trying to send Texas a restraining order to prevent you from securing your border like Biden has done, I will send you reinforcements. You'll get reinforcements. You're going to get reinforcements. On day one, we will begin the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. It'll be a big one. It'll be a big one, and it'll be something, not that we want to do it. We don't want to do it. We have a big heart, a beautiful heart, but you have to come into our country legally. We're going to change it. We're going to have to come into our country. Isn't it unfair when people are applying to come into our country for 12 years, 14 years, and all of a sudden, millions of people? I believe the real number is 16, 17, 18 million people. By the time we get this guy out of office, who I really believe the vote is, you know, we're leading in polls, but I really believe the vote could be a landslide, because who the hell, we don't want this guy there anymore. He's destroying our country. We don't want him there anymore. As we secure our border, we will also confront the deadly plague of radical Democrat crime that is devouring our country. Every day, radical left Democrat DAs, U.S. attorneys, and judges are setting loose dangerous and bloodthirsty criminals by the hundreds and hundreds and thousands. Joe Biden supports these radical policies. For example, Crooked Joe continues to support abolishing cash bail nationwide. No cash bail. As president, I will stand up to the Marxist DAs and Soros prosecutors, as I have been, by the way, very much over the last couple of years. They have been after me, you may have noticed. And we will give our police back their power and their respect. I am going to indemnify all police officers and law enforcement officials throughout the United States to protect them from being destroyed by the radical left lunatics who are angry that they're taking strong action on crime. We're going to protect them, and we will ensure that any criminal who murders a police officer receives the death penalty and a quick trial. And it's no wonder Joe Biden and his thugs are so desperate to stop us. They know that we are the only ones who can stop them. All of the persecution you're witnessing is only happening because I am running for president and leading in the polls. If I wasn't running, or if I was like so many others that we've now vanquished, there'd be nothing. There'd be nothing. In the latest New York Times poll, they were not happy about this. The New York Times, we're leading in every swing state by massive margins, and we're on track to win a record share of the Hispanic American votes this November. And likewise, we're doing record numbers with the African American voters. They are tired of what's happening to them. And honestly, there's been no president since Abraham Lincoln, and perhaps in a certain way, including Abraham Lincoln, but there's been no president since Abraham Lincoln that has done more for the black individual in this country than President Donald J. Trump. There's been nobody, not even close. Colleges and universities, criminal justice reform, opportunity zones. Tim Scott did a great job with the opportunity zones. Tim Scott of South Carolina. And we've done more for African Americans than any other president since Lincoln. Let's give Lincoln his due, okay? But that's the way it is. The Democrats are all talk, no action. I was little talk and total action. The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election in 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election in 2024. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I'm being indicted for you, and never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be standing in their way. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, and we will restore, as we had just 4 years ago, peace through strength. They respected our country, and they respected your president. I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror. On day one, I will cancel Joe Biden's absolutely insane electric vehicle mandate. And we are going to tell Texas energy workers like never before to drill, baby, drill. And as a group, and this is a big group and a beautiful group, and you go right into the deep corners of this big room, but I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But we're in this together. We got to save our country. And I think while we're here, we have to talk about the question of abortion. It's a very big issue, as you know, in our country, because we have to do the right thing, and we also have to get elected. We have a combination. We have to do the right thing, but we have to get elected. We've gotten abortion out of the federal government. You know, for years and years, that's what they wanted. Everybody said, we have to take it away, legal scholars. And we got it back to the states, the way that all of these scholars and experts in law always wanted it and always said it should be. This was the big question. We have to take it out. That's why they hated Roe v. Wade, because it was a federal issue. It wasn't a state issue. They wanted to bring it back to the states and to the people. And it's now up to the will of the people in each state. It's something that nobody can believe we're able to get done. And it's happening, and it's happening rapidly. It's moving along very rapidly. You saw that Nevada just changed their law, and it's going to go to a vote. You saw that Ohio, and in all fairness, they came out on the much more liberal side, if we can use that term. Kansas, likewise, great states, both great states, came out much more liberal in terms of this issue than some people would have thought. But the vote is the vote, and it's the will of the people. Some states will be more conservative and others will be more liberal. But the people will decide, and that's the way it should be, and that's the way people have wanted it to be for many, many decades. If the radical Democrat extremists get their way, they will have a federal law for abortion in the 7th, 8th, 9th month, and even executing a baby after birth. If you look at, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he said, yes, we'll have the patient, the woman brought in the 9th month, and if the baby is born, we will sit down and we will talk to the woman and we'll decide whether or not she wants to dispose of the baby. This is a Democrat, radical Democrat. They want abortion, and they fully allow, and in some cases they have a mandate. They allow abortions in the 7th, 8th, 9th month, and even after birth. And you can't have that. So the fact is, they're the radical ones on this issue, not you. They're the radical ones, but every voter has to go with your heart and do what's right. But we also have to remember that politicians, to do many other things, have to get elected. And I want to thank the 6 Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett for the wisdom and courage they showed on this long-term, very contentious issue. They did what's been wanted for many, many years. Getting it back to the states puts the question where it belongs, with the vote of the people, and over time it will all work out. It is already working out at a rapid rate, and our country can finally come together on this very contentious topic. And I think it's something we have to talk about, because you just have to talk about it. In my opinion, Republicans have not been talking about it intelligently. They haven't been talking about it with knowledge, or they were just wedded to something. But remember, speak from your heart, but you also have to get elected. Again, that's common sense, because we have many things to do, very big issues. Like this issue is a big issue, very big issues. So we did something that nobody thought could be done. And, you know, if you go back 10 years, 12 years, the only issue with Roe v. Wade was getting it back to the states where it belongs. And then with time, it gets to be very complex. No, the people are deciding, and they're deciding at a rapid pace. And some will be happy, some won't be happy. But that's true of almost everything that's contentious. But it's been an amazing thing, and people are working very hard to try and get their points across, and they're dealing with their states. And a lot of things are working out very, very well. So it's a very important thing, and I just hope that the Republicans learn how to speak about it properly and with intelligence and with heart. We're going to rebuild our cities into beacons of hope, safety, and beauty, better than they have ever been before. We will take over the horribly run capital of our nation, Washington, D.C. It's like a murder capital of the world, and clean up, renovate, and rebuild our wonderful capital so that it no longer is a nightmare of murder and crime, but rather it will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. We're going to renovate and rebuild, and we're going to take the graffiti out. I was there recently on a court case, of course, court case. I get so many court cases. I'm going to end up being Clarence Darrow. I'm going to end up being one of the greatest of all time. I'm becoming a great expert at the law, and I'm driving into a federal courthouse, and the graffiti all over the place is unbelievable. It's staggering. The roads are full of potholes. The medians in the middle, you know, the guardrails are all broken and laying, some of them literally laying in the street. The garbage is piled up and disgusting. Cans are laying there for many months. You know, you look at a can, I know how long it's been there. Some of them have been there for, I would say, more than a year. It's filthy dirty. We're going to make our capital strong again. We're going to run our capital. We're going to take our capital over by the federal government. It's going to run properly, not the way it's run right now. It's a murder capital. People are being murdered every single week, murdered. They leave the great state of Texas to go see our capital. They want to see our monuments, which some want ripped down. Remember when I passed a law when they were starting to get a little bit crazy in Washington? And I passed a law that anybody that touches a monument goes to jail for 10 years, not 6 years or 9 years or 9.5, 10 years, mandatory. And everybody left. It was amazing. It was a beautiful thing to watch. Everybody just left. We have to be strong on things like that. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. And also, on day one, I will keep men out of women's sports. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore free speech in America, and I will secure our elections. And by the way, our goal on election will be one-day voting with paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID. It's very simple. Very simple. But until then, Republicans must win. And gun owners must vote. You must go and vote. We want a landslide that is, here's the expression, too big to rig. Does that make sense? Because, you know, you get, at a certain point, you get big enough with the victory and they can't do anything. That's the ultimate form of winning anyway. If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration has done. And now I think I could add more. You know, if you were with me 6 months ago, and I think everybody was, I used to say the 5 worst. Now I say the 10 worst. I think I could probably say the 15 or 20 worst. He's the worst president we've ever had. The good news is Jimmy Carter is happy because Jimmy Carter's presidency is brilliant by comparison. Jimmy had a brilliant presidency by comparison to this guy, this horrible, horrible president that we have right now. Jimmy Carter had a brilliant presidency. So if you want to save America in your Second Amendment, register, get an absentee or mail-in ballot, vote early or vote on Election Day, I don't care. But whatever you do, you have to vote, and keep your eyes open. When you see thievery and theft, you report it. We're not going to have COVID where they can cheat and use COVID to cheat. This election season in Texas begins on October 19th. Think of that. We're so close, and yet it seems so far away. We're so close, but 4 months and 5 months is actually, in this world, it's an eternity. You could have a world war during this period of time. But it begins on October 19th and goes all the way to November 5th. Today we are also announcing the launch of Gun Owners for Trump. Gun Owners for Trump. And this is to get out the vote. Sign up at gunowners.donaldjtrump.com. Get out there and do it. We have to get the votes. And remember, what I told you is so true. The gun owners don't vote. It's so crazy. They should be, I would think that they would vote more than any other group of people. And it's just the opposite. They don't vote. And they have to get out and vote. So tell all your friends, leave here. I hope you're having a good time. Are you having a good time considering the subject matter is so terrible? So this is going to be, again, the most important election in the history of our country. I used to say it on 2016, but that was peanuts by comparison. I ran on the border in 2016, but that border was like fantastic compared to the border we have now. I solved the border problem, so much so that I couldn't use it in the 2020 speeches. I kept saying to my people, can I talk about the border, please? They said, sir, you've solved the problem. Nobody wants to hear about it. I said, that's not appropriate, but they were right. And yet we won by millions of votes more than we did in 2016 without talking about the border. But now the border is at a level that nobody's ever seen. There's never been a border in the world, in the history of the world, that's like this. This is a horror show. In conclusion, together, we are taking on some of the most menacing forces and vicious opponents our people have ever seen. But no matter how hateful and corrupt the communists and criminals we're fighting against may be, you must never forget this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. And you. This is your home. This is your heritage. And our American liberty is your God-given right. From Beaumont to El Paso, from Fort Worth to Corpus Christi, and from Midland to Dallas, this state was won by God-fearing, hardworking patriots like the men and women in this room today. Incredible people. It's an incredible state. You have a great governor. You have a great lieutenant governor. You have incredible Congress people. You have just fantastic people. The Texas spirit of proud independence was forged by cowboys and cattle hands, ranchers and rangers, oil workers, soldiers, and brave, brave, brave pioneers. Many came here with nothing but the boots on their feet, the clothes on their back, and the gun in their saddle. But they turned this state into a home of freedom, justice, and liberty, and they raised the flag high and dared any foe to come and take it. Do you know what that is? Come and take it. Come and take it. Together they helped make America into the single greatest nation in the history of the world. But now, we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has the highest inflation in 58 years, where banks are collapsing and interest rates are skyrocketing. Likewise, we are a nation where energy costs have reached the highest levels in our history. We are no longer energy independent or energy dominant as we were just a few short years ago. We are a nation that is begging Venezuela and others for oil. Please, please, please help us, Joe Biden says. Yet we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country anywhere in the world. We are a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will be reducing their oil production while at the same time substantially increasing the price. And we met that threat by announcing that we will no longer be drilling for oil in large areas of Alaska or elsewhere in our land. We gave up Anwar, the greatest reserve perhaps anywhere in the world. We are a nation that is consumed by the radical left's Green New Deal, yet everybody knows that the Green New scam is fake and will lead to our destruction. We are a nation whose leaders are demanding all electric cars, despite the fact that they don't go far, they cost too much, and whose batteries are produced in China with materials only available in China, when an unlimited amount of gasoline is available inexpensively in the United States, but it is not available in China. And now we are a nation that wants to make our revered and very powerful army tanks the best anywhere in the world, all electric, so that despite the fact that they also are not able to go far, fewer pollutants will be released into the air as we blast our way through enemy territory in an environmentally friendly way. And they also want to make our fighter jets with a green stamp of energy savings, though losing 15% efficiency, but allowing us to keep our enemy's atmosphere clean of emissions as we viciously and unceremoniously attack them at levels never seen before. Where and who are these people that would do this to our country? Who are these people who would ruin us and make us look like fools? We are a nation that ended oil exploration and production in the U.S. just as the price of oil reached an all-time high. What other country would do such a stupid thing and so self-destructive yet? Can we be energy independent and even energy dominant again? Yes, oh yes, and quickly, says President Trump. Yes, oh yes, and quickly. We are a nation that surrendered in Afghanistan, leaving dead soldiers, American citizens, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment in the world behind, and also abandoning Bagram, one of the biggest military bases anywhere in the world and only 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. And we are a nation that allowed Russia and Ukraine to fight, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. It would never have happened with me as your president, and for 4 straight years, it didn't happen. Likewise, the horrifying attack on Israel would never have happened. They wouldn't have even had a thought of doing such a thing if President Trump was in the Oval Office. Iran was broke under the Trump administration. They didn't have the money to fund Hamas or Hezbollah and all of the other instruments of terror that they used to finance. But those sanctions were lifted by a corrupt Biden administration, and now Iran is a rich country with $200 billion and another $6 billion for hostages and $10 billion for electricity to Iraq, all compliments of the incompetent Biden administration. And China with Taiwan is next. We are a nation that allows radical left terrorists to violently attack our cities, leaving behind massive destruction and death, and nothing happens to the criminals that do these terrible things. There is no punishment. But when people who love our country protest on January 6th in Washington, they become hostages, unfairly imprisoned for long periods of time. We are a third world nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party like never before. We've got a federal Bureau of Investigation that won't allow bad election-changing facts to be presented to the public, and which offers $1 million to a writer of fiction about Donald Trump to lie and say it was fact. Where Hunter Biden's laptop from hell was Russian disinformation, and the FBI knew it wasn't, but 51 intelligence agents said it was, and the Department of Justice that refuses to investigate egregious acts of voting irregularities and fraud. And we have a man who is totally corrupt and the worst president in the history of our country, who is cognitively impaired, in no condition to lead, and is now in charge of dealing with Russia and possible nuclear war, which would be World War III and far more devastating than any of the previous world wars because of the weaponry that no one even wants to think about. We are a nation that no longer has a free and fair press. Fake news is all you get, and they are indeed the enemy of the people. They refuse to discuss the Biden crime family, but enjoy covering the false indictments of Donald J. Trump, who has done nothing wrong except win an election against Hillary Clinton, which some people thought he was unexpected to win. We are a nation that, with free speech no longer allowed, and it is no longer allowed, and if we don't win the next election, it never will be allowed again. And where crime is rampant and out of control like never, ever before. We are a nation that is allowing Iran to build a massive nuclear weapon and China to use the trillions and trillions of dollars it has taken from us to build a military to rival our own. And less than 4 years ago, we had Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea in check. They respected us. They were afraid of us. They weren't going to do a thing against us, and everyone knows it. Now Russia and China are holding summits to carve up the world and to become partners. And perhaps most importantly, we're a nation that is no longer admired, respected, or listened to on the world stage. We are a nation that in many ways has become a joke. We are a nation that is hostile to liberty, freedom, faith, and even God. We are a nation whose economy is collapsing into a cesspool of ruin, whose supply chain is broken, whose stores are not stocked, whose deliveries are not coming, and whose educational system is ranked at the bottom of every single list. We are a nation that just sold a once great company, United States Steel, to Japan. We are a nation whose stock market's continued success is contingent on MAGA winning the next election. We are a nation where large packs of sadistic criminals and thieves are allowed to go into stores and openly rob them, beat up and kill their workers and customers, and leave with armloads of goods but with no retribution. Where the authority of our great police has been taken, where their families and pensions have been threatened, and their lives would be destroyed for the mere mention of the words law enforcement. We are a nation where fentanyl and all other forms of illegal drugs are easier to get than groceries to feed our beautiful families. We have become a drug-infested, crime-ridden nation, which is incapable of solving even the simplest of problems. We will institute the powerful death penalty for drug dealers, where each dealer is responsible for the death during their lives of at least 500 people or more. Mothers will never again be forced to watch their children overdosing and hopelessly dying in their arms, screaming, "What can I do? What can I do?" We are a nation whose once revered airports are dirty, crowded mess. You sit and wait for hours and then are notified that the plane won't leave, and they have no idea when they will, where the ticket prices have tripled. They don't have the pilots to fly the planes. They don't seek the qualified air traffic controllers, and they just don't know what the hell they're doing. We are a nation that screens its citizens viciously at all ports, but if you're an illegal alien, you're allowed to flow through the border by the millions and millions and millions. We are a nation that has lost its confidence, willpower, and strength. We are a nation that has quite simply lost its way. But we are not going to allow this horror to continue. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. It was the hard-working patriots like you who built this country, and it is the hard-working patriots like you who are going to save our country. We will fight for America like no one has ever fought before. 2024 is our final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. We will rout the fake news media. We will drain the swamp, and we will liberate our country from these tyrants and villains once and for all. Like those patriots before us, we will not bend, we will not break, we will not yield, we will never give in, we will never give up, we will never, ever, ever, ever back down. With your support, we will go on to victory, the likes of which no one has ever seen, and we will evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House on November 5th, 2024. The great silent majority is rising like never before, and under our leadership, the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America free again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much to the NRA, and thank you, Texas. Thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you.
at the annual NRA convention, talking about Joe Biden taking down America, being a threat to democracy, the border crisis, the economy crisis, the crime crisis, all due to the Biden regime, because, of course, Joe Biden is unable to put forward effective policy, talking about how important it is to vote Joe Biden out, fire him in November. And by the way, you may have heard the president mention in his speech the 2020 election that it was rigged. And of course, President Trump has a right to his perspective. However, Newsmax as a network believes that those results were legal and final. All right, the audience was enthusiastic. President Trump showing unwavering support for gun rights and gun owners. And